This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
It is a fine and beautiful morning here on Djuma Game Reserve. Look at that antelope on a quarantine, and the sun is beaming. The air is beautiful and cool. It's just absolutely wonderful. How special is that? Truly special. And even better than that, it's exciting because there's a hyena that has been running through too. So grab all your safari things and welcome aboard for your live adventure through the African bush. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be your guide this morning. We're here on Djuma Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. Like I said, it's really, really stunning. And we stopped here with this massive herd of Impala. They were right here by our camp, and a hyena just came through. And we thought, oh no, what's going to happen? And then it just stopped at the camp. So now we're waiting to see what will happen, if there's any excitement to start off the morning. My name is Trishala, and I've got Gert on camera with me this wonderful morning. And it's about 22 degrees Celsius, 71 degrees Fahrenheit. And I quite like that, quite perfect. The sun is soft and the air has a nice chill to it. I see some wildebeest too, somewhere in the distance there. Now remember, this is live and it's your safari, so use that hashtag WildEarth to chat to us, or of course at FC on the YouTube channel. And give us all your questions and comments. There's our gnus. Good morning. Critter freak, absolutely. You say beautiful lighting on these beautiful Impalas. I was about to say lightning there. No lightning, just great lighting. In the mornings on quarantine, it is just stunning. Because it's a rise, it's a crest. You get beautiful silhouetted animals and the sun peeks through the trees in stunning fashion. Birds are starting to wake up. Not terribly loud with the morning chorus just yet. Maybe they're struggling to wake up this morning. Picture perfect, absolutely. Well, we're going to keep on heading down. I'm going to pop into the hyena den. Remember, I told you that apart from the fact that we get to spend a wonderful time with the hyenas, it's a great spot to listen out to any other clues that the bush is going to show us. So off we go.
Dumela wamagetswe matswalu. Good morning and welcome to a wonderful Tswalu Kalahari. The moon in full view, presenting its full face at us. Obviously the position of where the moon is in relation to Earth, and then obviously the sun. The sun obviously exposing full or maximum light on the moon. And that's why it is fully visible at this point in time, being full moon. Good morning, my name is Carl, welcome to Tswalu, and behind camera is Owen. There we go. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us on this very, very wonderful morning. It is absolutely fantastic, birds starting to move around now, obviously the moon, just great. And I mean, look at those colours. I don't know if you guys, can you pick that up, Owen? You can see those colours. Okay. Oh, it's obviously starting to get a bit brighter now. So what we're going to be doing is just moving from here down south towards Chukuru Dam, and we're going to see if we can scratch up any new little items there, especially little creepy crawly ones. So we're ready to scratch around and look for things, see, keeping our ears wide open, our sense of smell wide open. Obviously being in the bush, it's very important to use all of your senses. And a nice view we're having of the moon. It's spectacular to be able to sit early morning and enjoy that beautiful sight. And that is spectacular. All the detail and having full view of it is really, really nice. So we're in full moon now, and we'll be progressing towards a new moon. So that means from here on out, we will start progressing from full to new, so it'll decrease with that illuminated part. We're going to send you off to one of our colleagues for their introduction, and we'll see you shortly.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to andBeyond in Ngala. I am busy driving on one of my favorite roads on the reserve. I think it's absolutely stunning. We're driving through a silver cluster leaf forest at the moment, or a woodland. My name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide on safari for this morning at andBeyond in Ngala. Behind the camera we have Sebastian this morning. And the plan coming down on this road of mine that I love so much is, firstly, we're getting covered in spider webs. But if you have a look, it's quite a beautiful area. It's nice and thick. And then there's some of these open patches around us with some tall trees. So I'm really actually hoping for a leopard here this morning. It's also a fantastic area for a cheetah this time of the morning. We are getting to some more of the open areas now. But the big plan for this morning is to try and find you a leopard. So what I'm actually doing is I'm driving now while it's nice and cool, and I'm scanning through the grass. I'm listening for birds or impalas alarm calling, but I'm also checking up in all of the bigger trees as we drive past them. And what I'm looking for is that white tip on a leopard's tail, or the flicking ears, or even just a flash of gold. And it's amazing. Sometimes your brain tells you something's there even if you haven't quite clicked on it yourself. Your brain will notice the different shape in kind of your peripheral vision and tell you. So I'm hoping that we get to find you a leopard this morning. I'm actually coming up to a nice big clearing now. And I'm hoping that there might be even some wildebeest and zebra here. Alright, so I'm going to keep going towards this big clearing, stop there for a bit and scan, and hopefully I can find you a predator.
Well, good luck, Tess. Hopefully you find what you're looking for. I suppose we'll be probably doing much the same in the form of looking for the spotty cats. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tristan. On camera, I have Marcel this morning, which is a great pleasure to have Marcel back on the car. And it's very, very nice to be back in Djuma. We're currently at Twin Dams at the moment. We just took a little bumble down here just to see if there's any sign of potentially Sabi or any other cats that could be around, but quite quiet. You can see there's lots of water that's around, and that's after all the rain we've had. Twin Dams is slightly fuller than it was the last time I was here, which wasn't very long ago. I was here last week, so it's not much change since I was, but you can see a little Impala ram that's just at the end of the dam wall. Often when I sit here and see these Impala rams on this sort of section of the dam wall, it always reminds me of this crazy sighting we had of a male leopard called Hosanna that was once stalking impalas here, and he was lying flat, and these impalas were kind of just walking past, and he came so close, but it was back in the day when he was a lot more inexperienced, and I think he missed his shot when the one came past, and then eventually the last impala in the group spotted him lying on the wall, which I think is the one that he was targeting. He was hoping that last one was going to go over, and then he could kind of rush out. But like I said, it was still when he was a lot smaller. But you can see with these guys, they're fairly sort of twitchy still, and that's because, the sun's only just come up. They're also in an area where it's quite dense. There's a lot of sort of drainage lines and undulating sort of areas, which makes it the perfect place for leopards to spend a lot of time. We see a lot of different leopards at this particular point, and so these guys are just standing on the wall while it's still cool this morning, just listening and looking out. They might have also heard alarm calls during the course of the night. Could also be part of why they're a little bit kind of, I wouldn't say skittish or shy, but they're a little bit more aware of what's going on than, say, impalas that you would find on quarantine at this time of the morning. Although the poor impala on quarantine had a rude awakening this morning with that hyena. All right, we're going to go try to see what we can find. Hopefully there'll be some little spotted golden coats in our horizon.
Look at this. Slowly coming into frame. It's our giant African land snail. They're so amazing to watch. Can you imagine what the world must be like for a creature that moves so slowly? So often when we have them on camera, they're hiding or not side on, so this is an excellent view. You can see their tentacles. These top ones offering photoreception, essentially their eyes at the tips. Spotted tentacles offering a sense of smell and a tactile awareness too. These giant African land snails are one of the few animals that we get here that actually consume mushrooms. I would love to catch one in that moment. Mumzilla, you'd like to know how big that snail is? Hang on, I just want to check if I have my ruler here. No, I don't. It is about the size of my palm, which is about 15 centimeters long. The largest one ever recorded was about 37 centimeters, if I remember correctly. Hence a giant African land snail. Also, I meant palm, including middle finger. My palm is definitely not 15 centimeters on its own. Gracie, that is an awesome question. You'd like to know how many teeth snails have. Snails don't actually have teeth. They have a kind of conveyor belt-like part in their mouth called a radula. So it's like a conveyor belt, and that moves in that motion, and it's got tiny teeth-like structures on it that can pull as they feed. So there's no teeth. They have a radula. That's what their mouth part is called, that they eat with. So you can't get bitten by a snail. Jamie, you'd like to know if these snails are territorial. As far as I know, they're not. In fact, they quite look forward. That sounds so human. You see, when you're a slow-moving creature, and it takes you a long time to get from one point to another point, then the chances of you meeting another creature like yourself is very low and reduced. Even if you see one, by the time you get there, that creature might be already gone. So when they see another giant African land snail, they're most likely very happy to see another one because it means that they can mate, which means that they're very unlikely to be territorial. If they were territorial, they'd be reducing their chances of finding a mate. Now, also, being territorial is usually towards your same sex. So if you're a female, you're territorial towards other females, but you'll let other males, and same goes for males being territorial against other males, but will let females in. But these giant African land snails are hermaphroditic, so they're both male and female. So there's no need for them to be territorial against the same sex, because they are all the same sex. And when they meet another, they need to exchange gametes. Because to find another slow snail in just the brief period in the year when it's nice and wet is a huge task. And if it were territorial, it would just reduce the chances of that. And that's obviously not good, because every species needs to make more of me. Not of me, but of themselves. Oh no, it's about to rush out of frame. Such a cool creature. Look at the bottom tentacles as it moves, putting one down, putting another down. So much information to pick up about the world. And speaking of their senses, we know that they have sight, smell, sense of touch, taste. I don't know, and I don't know if it would be relevant to them, but taste is has evolved in order for animals to be able to differentiate when something is off or diseased or is going to cause them some harm. It's not just, for pleasure. And then it spirals after that, and now we have the type of taste buds that we do. So they may potentially have taste to the degree of saying, oh, maybe this is not good for me or whatever, but I don't know about its sense of taste. But its sense of hearing, they don't have ears at all. Not an internal ear, not an external ear. But they can still pick up on vibrations, and you could say that they still have a sense of hearing, but... Oops. Sorry, that was my game jam radio. They still do have a kind of a sense of hearing, because they can pick up these vibrations, and we know that sound can be in all sorts of frequencies, and we just have a certain bracket that we can hear. And so we get used to thinking that that's what sound means, but it doesn't. There's a whole extensive range of frequencies that sounds can be. And for these land snails, they can pick up vibrations, and their brain can be able to interpret that as sound, but they do not have any sound organs, any organs to collect sound like we do. That's one of the reasons I quite like them, because we're so used to the typical way in which our senses work, and that mammal senses work. If you have ears, you can hear. You have eyes, you can see. all those kind of things. But in fact, there's other ways to still collect that kind of information, even if it's not how we do. It's almost made it across the road. I think we had a really nice time with this African land snail. Now you go on and cross the roads, nobody drives over you, and we are going to head down to the den as we planned.
That is true ranger style. Well done, Trish. Ensuring that beautiful organism makes it across the road safely. I salute you. We are just enjoying this wonderful scene while we are slowly traveling down south. And the way that the light is just coming through the vegetation, the backdrop of the mountains, the birds calling. It is just too priceless. Forktail drongo busy calling there. We actually found a pair now with a juvenile, so unfortunately off the nest already. And we are still looking for that nest so that we can hopefully see that very unique behavior of brute parrotism. So from here, we're going to be traveling a bit further down south, and we're going to be looking for tracks. I would like to try and find a cheetah within today. So finding tracks is by far the most efficient way that we would find up or lead up to that animal. So finding any signs like tracks, or maybe a carcass, spraying or pouring, these are all telltale signs or clues left behind by these amazing cats. And hopefully we can get lucky today with a cheetah or two. That Diedrich cuckoo, I mentioned yesterday it was a Diedrich's cuckoo. That's a Diedrich cuckoo call in the background. Wonderful sounds.
Good morning, everyone. From us here and these two Egyptian geese who have just chased off a rival from their waterhole. This might be our original pair, because they were aggressively shooing off another goose, and now they've taken their rightful spot on the sunny banks of Ndlovu Dam, just preening themselves after a bit of a tussle, making themselves look real special for hopefully raising another set of chicks after they lost their first set, unfortunately. Hi everyone, I'm Mike Anderson. Behind the camera is BK, and you join us at Eco Training's Pridelands Conservancy. And it's a lovely morning. It's calm, sunny, quite cool now, though I suspect it's going to be incredibly warm later. They're saying almost 40 degrees. And so I think this waterhole and Leopard Dam, which we'll go and look at a little bit later, are going to be very, very busy with animals this morning and this afternoon. Well, actually, you can see the rival still sitting on the bank just behind these geese. You see it there, BK? Just there, having to be relegated to the grassy knoll, a bit closer to the thickets where there's potential danger. And not the greatest nesting sites away from the water there, but at least there's food, which is quite good. Egyptian geese eat quite a wide variety of foods, from seeds and nuts to, well, not really nuts, seeds from grasses, and then lots of invertebrates and other things. This pair is doing very well, reconnecting with themselves and with the waterhole. And speaking of connecting with each other, if you are interested, I think you should really, really check out the WildEarth.tv/explorer It's a new platform that WildEarth has launched. It's super cool. Win prizes, meet interesting people, get to know all the news from all the different locations, and keep in touch with us as well. wildearth.tv/explorers. Check it out, it's really cool. Whilst we check out what's going to be happening this morning on all the different locations, coming to you live on the safari this morning. You can also answer your questions. Jerome, that is exactly correct. These particular species of geese, although now very, very widespread, originate from the Nile Valley and the surrounding area. They are wonderful generalists, and so they've been able to colonize all parts of Africa, except for the extremely thick jungle areas and the desert areas. But they've also now managed to be naturalized in a number of European countries because of their extreme adaptability. They're a bit like... Oh, there's a cool little sparrowhawk flying over. I don't know if we'll be able to see that. BK, oh, is it going to stick around? No, it's being chased off. Oh, that's so cool. So there's a little sparrowhawk who is actually nesting in our camp, and it just flew over being chased by a fork-tailed drongo. And I really thought he was going to land in a dead tree nearby. It didn't. But yeah, so other animals are quite adaptable. For example, leopards are found all over the world and can survive in human environments as well as natural ones, as long as they have some, generalized habitats like cover, water, food. As long as they can conceal themselves, they're quite happy. So the Egyptian goose is also quite an adaptable bird. As long as it's not too dry, they can basically survive there. If you can hear the alarm system going off, that is a pair of grey-headed bushshrikes making their very long and mournful whistle. That is the grey-headed bushshrike. And the geese are about to start claiming their territory once again. Butterfly, they are really, really pretty, actually. I know a lot of people dislike, a lot of birders dislike Egyptian geese, because although they are quite pretty, they are very territorial and they tend to chase other birds away from waterholes. So people have nice gardens and expect lots of birds to come to their pond or whatever they have in their garden. If Egyptian geese take up residence there, they won't see much, unfortunately, which is a real shame. But they're really cool birds. And they're called geese, but they're not actually geese. They are close related to ducks, specifically shell ducks. I don't know why they have the name goose, Egyptian goose. And they are close related to the ducks. You see this one's also preening itself. It was the one that was being chased earlier. So I have no idea if this is maybe a young goose who came to this waterhole to try and... Oh, I see trouble. I see the other geese are walking up towards it. Is there going to be another battle? See that? So the other two geese are trying to sneak up behind the bushes. Let's see if they chase this rival away again. Certainly seems like he wants to move away, or it wants to move away. It's so interesting to watch them. I mean, they could so easily and quickly fly over to that other goose, but they're deciding to waddle over. Not the most graceful. Oh, there it goes. Oh, yep, there. Goodbye. No time for you at this waterhole. It's so interesting. The waterhole is quite large, and there's plenty of space on both sides. I don't know why they don't just... it doesn't just fly to this side of the waterhole, but I suppose there's not that much grass this side. Maybe that's why. A bit more grass that side. Well, it's a super awesome morning. Hopefully, there's going to be more animals that come down to the waterhole, just like these doves, coming to satisfy their morning drink. And we'll keep you updated.
A super awesome morning it is, watching these bull giraffe get a little early morning nibble in. And now they decide to move. So we shall move up a tiny bit as well there, Owen. Let's just move up a little bit. Beautiful call over here, sharp notes. That is of the ashy tit. Very nice bird to hear and to see. Have you got a clear shot there, Owen? Okay. So these are fairly young bulls. They're not fully mature. You can see from their body mass and their height, they've still got a little bit of growing to do. Put them around about 5-6 years old. Maybe a little bit later, 5-6 years old. You can see how the light in the background is rushing towards us. The vegetation's being illuminated. See, we're still in the shadow of the mountain that is directly behind us, east of us. And these three bulls displaying by far normal behavior. Early morning browsing, it's when they do prefer to have intense feeding bouts. And then the moon phase that we have right now, being full moon, they'd also feed almost through the night. Obviously giraffe have to eat quite a lot, in 30 to 40 kilograms. That's a lot of vegetation per day. They're trying to hide, Owen. Julia, what a wonderful comment. They are gorgeous, giraffe. I mean, giraffe are just so entertaining to watch all the time. And who doesn't like a giraffe? And across the board, anybody that comes to Africa, anybody that lives in Africa is just always in awe about giraffe. Although we haven't given it enough respect and attention that this wonderful creature actually deserves. So if you look at through Africa now, we are really trying to understand the severe threat that certain individuals, certain giraffe found through Africa, are under immense pressure. And that would obviously be from habitat loss. So we really need to pay a little bit more attention and time on preserving and understanding this beautiful species, because it plays a massive role in the ecosystem. Let me pull a bit forward for us, Owen. We've focused on lions, we've focused on elephant and lion, but we've never just worried about giraffe. We just thought that giraffe are just fun. And from a bit of understanding, a little bit of dedication, hard work, we have really uncovered some scary things about their status, so to say, which is a little bit frightening. But that's okay. We are driving conservation with the iron fist. Oh, a little African massage over here. There we go. We've got a little gap over here we can see. Oh, just the one's head. So you can see 2 to 5 minutes on each bush. Basana, how can we tell the gender? Well, that's a great question. And it's fairly easy. So if you can't see anything between the legs, we are using those horn-like projections, those two protrusions from the head. So the one that's in view there now, Owen, should be punched into it. You can see those horns, those are very thick and they are very straight. And if you look very carefully, right on top, there'll be no hair presented on top of that horn-like projection. Those horns are called ossicones. They are physical bone that is fused to the skull in the very, very early stages of this animal's life. And males use them for fighting, so they become worn down and bare on top of the ossicones. Males use them for fighting, so they also need to be a lot sturdier, so they are thicker, and they are almost dead straight. Oh, wildebeest giving a territorial call there. Oh, sounds like a motorbike trying to start. And then whereas in females, they don't use their ossicones for much. So they are very thin, they bend into one another, and they've got little tufts of hair on top of their head, on top of the ossicone, sorry. So just by the ossicones, we can use that as a tool to identify male and female, but then as well as sheer size and body form. Males will be much bigger, a lot more stockily built, and they'll also be about 1 meter taller than that of the female. But that only comes in with a bit of practice when looking at giraffe. But those ossicones are a very easy way to see and then also identify that of male and female. You got a sight there? Okay, we're going to scoot forward just a touch so we can get a clear view. Oh, they are very mobile this morning. You can see they don't spend long on one tree. 2 to 5 minutes, and then once the tree obviously... Oh, there goes another viewer. Hello, good morning. Once the tree obviously senses it's being attacked, defense is put on the front foot, and obviously the tree does all it needs to do to defend itself. So that is a very quick way of deterring these herbivores. And that'll be done via chemical right now. You can see just in the time we've been looking at, look how close that sun has gotten. Wow.
She's very stationary. She's sleeping actually at the moment.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Copy, thanks. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to andBeyond Phinda. We've just been having quite a tough time, but we managed to spot this female leopard up in a tree. Oh, look at that. So I do apologize. We may lose signal while we're here with her, but we're really excited because for those of
Sorry about that, guys. I'm sure we'll get Phinda back in no time. We're here at the hyena den, just seeing if anything is happening. On the way, I've checked on the helmet stripe nest and the chin spot rattus nest. Both appear to be empty, which is a shame. Okay. No one is home at the den either. Nope. Alright, let's swing it around. Sometimes by doing this is how you can find a chameleon in the daytime. Just get up close and personal to a bush. I mean, you've got to be a bit lucky, but it is a way. So here's den entrance. As you can see, not much happening at all. But the cubs will be in there. But that being said, I did see cub tracks heading away from the den. Not as small as Corky's cub, but definitely Ribbon's too. Their little paws walking away towards Philemon's Dip. Okay, now we're going to pop into at Treehouse Dam. Have a look if there's anything at the Waterhole.
Henry.
This is a really cool bird that we've found. It's a great spotted cuckoo, which is one of the larger cuckoos that we get here. And it's making a lot of noise around the camp the last few days, but this is the first one I've actually seen. And right now it's searching for insects, mostly caterpillars, to feed on. It's not a bird we see very often. We hear it quite a lot, but there's not a lot of them. They're nowhere near as common as the Levalence or the Jacobin cuckoo, or indeed even the Diedrichs. That is a different bird. Now what is that? Yeah, can you still see it? Yeah, it's still there. There it is. So the great spotted cuckoo is a bird that lays its eggs in the nests of others. So this is an adult. By now there shouldn't be any juveniles that are fully fledged. But I've seen this exact species of bird being fed by a starling before, which was less than half of its size. And they obviously look completely different. As you know, the starlings are dark in color with that iridescence, and this one has got the spotted wings and the gray crown and white on the belly. So it's amazing that the bird was feeding the cuckoo without even blinking an eye, without even worrying about the fact that it looked so different. I'm sure it was just super impressed that its baby was massive, way bigger than all the other starlings' babies. I actually thought it was going to get chased away because it was sitting there and these two starlings came flying up to it. No way, Linda, I'm so glad. It's the first time you've ever seen this bird, Linda. So maybe if it's the first time for you, it might be the first for quite a few of you back home. So if it is, let us know. That's super great. So this might only be the fourth or fifth time I've gotten a decent view of one. And there it's sitting next to a laughing dove over there, which is not one of the host birds, so they would have no problem with each other. But a lot of the crows, for example, are parasitized by these cuckoos because it's quite a large cuckoo. So they will actively chase them away, and the starlings as well. There's another host species for them, so they'll definitely chase them away if they see them. Really, really cool bird to see. So it's sitting out in the open, which is quite strange because it does make itself a bit of a target for the other birds. I wonder what it's going to do next. What's it looking for? It's looking for food. I saw it eating a caterpillar a little bit earlier. I wonder when it's going to fly. Is it going to fly? I'm going to sit there. It's very well camouflaged amongst those sticks, though, with those spotted wings and the grey back. It does make it really well camouflaged if it doesn't move too much. And it's nesting in some of the larger boerbean trees that are around here, I'm sure, along this drainage line. Well, not nesting, I shouldn't say. It's got the host's nest is in there somewhere, because we see it flying in and out of these trees quite frequently. It roosts there during the night, and it's probably found a starling's nest that it's laid its egg in somewhere around there, potentially. There are records of these birds, these cuckoo species, staying close to their host's nest in order to protect the host's nest and therefore protect their eggs from any potential predators that might be around there, whether it be monkeys trying to steal the eggs, or whether it's snakes or birds of prey that might eat their chicks. Oh, that's a beautiful view of it. Look at that. This really might be the best view I've ever had of a great spotted cuckoo. Sitting beautifully out in the open. Really showing off all of its colors. And there you can also see its feet. Can you see that? Only 2 toes forward. See that? There'll be 2 toes back and 2 toes forward. It's a classic zygodactylus foot structure, allowing it to cling onto the side of trees and to other birds' nests. Oh, and there it flies. Goodbye, Mr. Cuckoo. It was absolutely wonderful to have spent a moment with it. That was super cool. I hope that it was a first bird for a lot of you. It is a really special bird to see. All the cuckoos, I think, are quite special, just because of their amazing, habit of laying eggs. Their life cycle is so interesting. And we are sitting in that big clearing where we had all those giraffes yesterday. Today, completely quiet. We've seen so many animals, from wildebeest, zebras, impalas and giraffes, warthogs in this clearing. Today, absolutely nothing going on here. So I wonder where they've all gone. I suspect they're moving towards water because it is already starting to heat up after such a short time. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start moving towards the water and hopefully find something interesting happening around there as the temperature...
Welcome back to andBeyond Ngala, everybody. I think I actually agree with Mike. I haven't had, well, he's very lucky that he had such a good view of a great spotted cuckoo this morning. I don't think I've ever had a fantastic, like a clear view of a great spotted cuckoo, so I'm actually a little bit envious of that this morning. But we have actually just been told that from camp they can hear some lions. And very close to that area there's also now tracks of some leopards. 2 of them, in fact, together. So we're actually heading back towards that area, back towards the main Timbavati riverbed. And I don't know if you can see, but there are a lot of spider webs out this morning. So it seems like every few meters I'm driving through another one. I think I look like a giant spider web this morning, catching insects as I go. What I'm actually wanting to do is head down towards that river, and then I'm actually going to drive through the riverbed looking for tracks of them crossing over. It's not too far from where we are now, which is amazing. And we're really, really hoping that we bump into something. It's amazing. I was thinking about what Trishala was saying earlier, where there's so many different ways that you can use your senses. I think it's something that we don't realize out here, is you really can use your senses in so many different ways. But I'm going to head on down towards the river, and I'm really, really hoping that I hear some of those lions calling so I can find them for you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to andBeyond Phinda. I'm not sure how much you caught from us last time. I don't know when it cut out, but I'm going to start again from scratch. So we did find this female leopard up in a tree, not too far from the road, and we got a nice position to view her. And just as we did that, she decided to wake up and get moving. Look at that. Now, I'm so excited because I think for me this is the first time I've been able to show you guys a leopard on Phinda. I know they've been seen a couple times, but sorry, I'm still so excited. My name is Grant, and behind the camera this morning we have Glenn. And just look at that. And to top it off, for me, it's on Phinda, we're not supposed to have favorites, but this is my favorite leopard. She's just gorgeous. So just with her behavior at the moment, you'll see she's walking a little bit low. You see her ears are tucked flat to her body. I think she's seen something that we have not been able to see yet.
You're welcome, Jeffrey. You're welcome.
And also when she crosses the open area, she doesn't like it. So she kind of changes her behavior crossing through the open clearings, and then when she gets into the slightly thicker stuff, then her body language changes again. So for now, we are going to try to reposition, and we're going to send you off to another location.
Well, welcome back. We just thought that we would take a look at that little starling nest. Currently still 3 little blue speckled eggs, which is fantastic. And then I thought, what are the chances that these owls would still be here? And there they are. Exactly the same tree. So it shows you if a bird is comfortable with a resting spot, that it would reuse that spot time and time again. If you feel most comfortable, if you haven't had any threats or disturbances, that means your spot that you're resting at, you've selected very well. And it's a secure spot. And that's what you want when you're resting, is security. You don't want to be vulnerable and exposed through these lull periods. But you can only see one of the individuals. Still scanning very hard. Obviously their cryptic coloration is very efficient. In one branch and you'll miss that bird. So they would have been hunting and fairly active under the cover of darkness. And now is when they rest, just like we saw yesterday morning. Hammond, do we get owls that are diurnal? You could say the little pearl spot owlet is a diurnal. That would be the one species that likes to operate during daylight hours. The rest of these individuals are more on a nocturnal basis, so resting throughout the day and then becoming fairly active under the cover of darkness. Their wings are designed obviously to be very, very silent while in flight. And those large eyes obviously absorbing any little bit of light generated by stars and by the moon. And they also have a very good sense of hearing. But we do definitely see that pearl spot owlet moving and calling throughout the daylight hours. But these species, this would be a rest period now, so being very active under the cover of darkness. And this beautiful individual would have been feeding on things like insects, small rodents, and even little mammals at times. And then just before the break of dawn, this individual would have come straight back to the spot with its partner and then secured itself right here. It is such a treat to look at owls. If you ever watched an owl sitting under the cover of darkness or flying, it is such a treat because they are marvelous birds. So their coloration, their behavior, their adaptations, and obviously having the ability to fly in silence in comparison to other birds which make quite a lot of noise while in flight. And that's just the resistance, the air flowing over the actual feather that creates sound. Whereas in the feathers of owls, they've got a little bit of an extra function to them. Oh, wow, Spitty, owls are one of your favorites. That is fantastic that we are looking at this little bird then. They are really remarkable creatures. I mean, that party trick that they have, the ability of turning their head at 270 degrees is definitely one of the highlights of watching an owl. Watch it rotate its head fairly quickly like it is. It's quite scary at times. And if you think about it, it's a very efficient tool that an owl would use, not only to seek out prey, but then also to keep a watchful eye out for predators. So this chap is only about 25, 27 centimeters, so it's not a very large owl. And general weight, you're looking at about 200 grams. So it's a fairly small owl in comparison to that monster we've been finding here in Tswalu the past couple of weeks, which is the Verreaux's eagle owl. And that is just the Godzilla of owls here in Tswalu. So seeing this over here and notifying that they've been back to the spot, if we go and search under that tree, we would actually unearth what they refer to as owl pellets. So this is a continual spot that they'll rest at, and obviously at this resting period they'll defecate. And what they'll defecate is almost perfectly intact little skeletal structures of rodents. Prey is swallowed whole. If you take a look at how certain birds feed, these guys obviously pin, they kill, and then they swallow whole. So in these droppings, which are referred to as owl pellets, you can take these droppings and dissolve them in water, and you can have a perfect little skeletal structure of a rodent that you can actually put back together quite neatly. And that is a clear sign of a resting spot of an owl. We're going to send you off for now, and we'll see you when you get back this side.
From owls down in Tswalu to a whole bunch of birds that are at Buffelshoek Dam this morning. It's basically thriving with all kinds of bird life. We've got grey heron that you're seeing now skulking along the edges of the bank, looking for all kinds of tasty morsels that potentially could be present in the dam itself. And then slightly above the grey heron, you'll see there are water thickneys that are bumbling about, also just taking it easy, enjoying a bit of sunshine. And above them is probably one of the most beautiful birds that we see out here. It's a very, very large bird, but it is quite, well, not rare, but I mean, we see them fairly regularly, but not that many of them left outside of the protected areas that we're in. When you go outside of the Kruger area, you don't see many of these guys at all. So this is a saddle-billed stork, and it's a male saddle-billed stork that's on his own. It's been really interesting to see that he's been by himself. I saw him last week, so I'm surprised that there isn't any sign of a female. He generally, when we see these saddle-bills, we're seeing pairs together. Now, the way that we know that this is a male is because he's got a dark eye. Even from this distance, the females present a very bright little yellow ring on their eye, which makes it super easy to be able to identify them. As you can see, he's having a little stretch and a little clean before I'm sure he goes down to the water and starts to fish for the day. And they'll catch all kinds of things from fish, crabs, terrapins, and actually quite amazing to sometimes see the size of things these guys are able to swallow. Not very pleasant at all. All right, well, we're going to carry on sitting here, see what it gets up to. Hopefully he'll come down and do some fishing.
Well, we're still bumbling about. We've been to Treehouse Dam. Nothing too interesting going on. But I see a community nest spider nest. It's just gotcha. I love watching them because occasionally you'll see them out in the day, especially if they've got some damage to their nest and web. Now, they're nocturnal, so you don't actually see them very often. And when you do, it's quite cool. It looks like there's a scary face in their web. You can see the two eyes in the mouth. There could be hundreds of spiders living in there. And it's pleasantly creepy when they all come out. And they have a division of labor within their social structure. So some will take care of spiderlings, while others will take care of the maintenance of the web and the nest. Others are for defense and for picking out any prey that manages to get caught in their web, and then brings it back into the nest so that everybody can eat. That type of cooperative behavior is very rare in spiders. And it's really awesome that we have one species of these community nest spiders or social spiders on Djuma, because it's such a rare thing to see spiders working together. At the moment, all we see is the scary face, or shocked face, rather. Kind of looks ghostly with all the spider web, too. Very nice. Well, we're going to head over now to our next water point, and that being Twin Dams. and then go through the Milwaukee and see what we can find.
The very interesting plant that you can see here is one of the plants that the monkeys were feeding on at the Waterhole yesterday when we were sitting there most of the afternoon. And it's called a white berry bush. The scientific name is Fleuegia virosa, and it's one of the trees that we can actually feed on. We can eat the fruits. They're quite delicious, very fleshy and profuse. As you can see on this plant, there are lots and lots of the fruits growing all over it, and they're so abundant here at Pridelands. I mean, we've seen so many of them. They're growing on basically every single corner of the reserve. Now, so I plucked a little branch here to show you what the fruits look like up close. I don't know if you can see that there, BK. So I must hold it up. Okay, there you go. You can see here how profuse we're struggling there. It's not focusing. There we go. Beautiful. So you can see how many fruits are on this one branch. Now, not only are the fruits edible, but these nice long straight branches that you can see are very flexible. So in a lot of parts of Africa where these trees grow in abundance, these branches are used to make things like fish traps. So because they're so supple and flexible. But anyway, I'm going to try one of these fruits because as you can see there's lots of them and they're nicely white. So you've got to choose the whitest fruit. So you can see there's some green ones and there's some white ones, and the green ones are obviously not great, and the whiter they are, the more ripe they are. So I'll grab 2 of them. Now the trick with these little fruits is that they've got tiny little seeds that are quite crunchy and hard. If you crunch those seeds, they're not pleasant. The seeds are bitter and then make your mouth taste horrible. It's just the fleshy one. So the trick is to eat it and then use your tongue to crush the flesh at the top of your mouth, and all the juice is what you get. So let me try it. Yeah, it doesn't taste like much, to be honest. I think they are still a little bit green. But it is sugary. You can taste that it's quite sweet. And when they're even more ripe, they get a bit rounder and a bit whiter. And then they're very delicious. But don't eat too many of them, as I mentioned. Oftentimes our students will see these things and they'll grab pocketfuls of these white berries and eat them all the way home. And then you might get a bit of a funny stomach because they are, something that we don't normally eat. It's a lot of different minerals and chemicals and stuff in there. So don't eat too many of them. But they are very delicious and they are very nutritious as well. So grab a few as you walk, and it's a little sugary hit. As you can see, there are lots of them. They're fed on by everything. It's the larval food of lots of different types of butterflies, and many birds and monkeys will eat these in abundance. So a very, very awesome plant to know. The white berry bush, Fleuegia virosa.
Well, natural sugar is the best way to go. From that southern white-faced owl, we have diverted our attention onto something very different. So in frame, Owen's got a nice picture set up of a very funny shaped branch. And it is very funny. So as I came around the corner, just in the mix of things that caught my attention, and the way that the branch looks is just not natural. You can see on other stems, they go up to branches. From branches, they go up into the leaves. And the way that this branch is broken is very strange. We don't have elephant in this area, so it can't be, the culprit of elephant. So I want to ask folks quickly, what do you think could have caused that fracture in that branch, taking into consideration that it is a very, very tough piece of wood. It's one of the toughest woods in Africa, along with other woods like ironwood and sneezewood. It's a very, very tough wood. It's one of the strongest and has been used for many items along the way, from fence poles, tool handles, walking sticks. Camel thorn is a very versatile and very hardy wood. But for that branch to look like that, you need a very volatile and strong force. And you can see it's broken from the top. There's a piece on the ground. There's another piece on the right. And if you can see this piece on the right hand side, Owen, it's sitting just before the canopy itself. It's just broken off over there. But you would need a very strong force to break such a thick stem off of this tree. consulting detective. Yes, lightning. Lightning would be the culprit for shattering this stem. We've found across Tswalu, you'd find them quite frequently. And I have had it where we were driving and literally it must have been a minute or two before the actual incident happened. We could actually physically smell the burnt section of the tree. It gives this very earthy, very carbon type smell once lightning hits it. I mean, that would have shattered that section of the stem. Obviously, the amount of power that's generated through one lightning bolt is tremendous. And obviously, being out here in lightning storms is not always the most comfortable, so to say. But I thought we'd just share that with you folks, something different, just looking at these little telltale signs and trying to understand, almost like going through a little CSI or a little detective scene, gathering all the information and getting a relevant answer is always really nice. But yes, lightning bolt, great one there, detective. Perfectly suited as well. Nice name there for our little detective work. So we've left this white-faced owl, and what we're going to be doing is just going slightly north here. We're meandering just north of this pan, and we're just utilizing the road to see if we have any tracks crossing in or out. That's the easiest way that we would find these cats, and obviously tracking out here is a very important tool on how we lead up onto animals. And when it comes to knowledge and obviously understanding animal behavior, those work hand in hand together to lead up and find these magnificent creatures. So what we're going to do, I'm going to ask Owen just to drift left. We're going to be meandering through this beautiful section of Tswalu, and this is where we're going to try and uncover where these little animals are hiding. Obviously, the substrate, great format to track in. We're going to send you off for now, and we'll see you back this side.
So welcome to the Timbavati Riverbed in andBeyond Ngala. So we have actually found tracks of the Pride of lions, the Birmingham Pride, from where they were yesterday crossing over the river. But there's actually also tracks of a male and female leopard together. So that's actually what I'm interested in this morning, because it's not often that you find tracks of leopards together. And I'm thinking the reason they might be together could be because it's a male and female's tracks. Maybe it might be time for them to start mating, which actually does make sense because a lot of the predators are going to give birth in our winter, which is our June, July, so anywhere from May. And leopards are normally pregnant for around 3 months. It's about 100 days. So I'm thinking that that would be an absolutely incredible thing to find this morning. So that's what I'm scanning for, especially here along the riverbed, because this is where the biggest trees are, so where the leopards are most likely to be resting. But also some nice thickets on the side. So it's a great place for them to hide. If they are mating, they're going to need some nice shade. They're going to need to be close to water, and there is a little water hole coming up in the riverbed. So that's exactly what I'm looking for. Now, I was actually also noticing this morning, if you have a look here on the left, there's a lot of flowers that have actually come out since our rain that we had 2 or 3 days ago. So this one is a Pride of the Cape. It's still very, very small, but it's got those beautiful orange flowers. And as I'm driving, I'm just noticing there are flowers absolutely everywhere. There's little white ones, there's yellow ones, all sorts, from wild hibiscus right up to some of the trees like a weeping wattle, which is now the African wattle, or a boerbean. Absolutely stunning flowers. And I've actually seen quite a few sunbirds in and out of the Pride of the Capes recently. So I think with this rain, not only have the flowers come out in force, but so have the insects. We've had a lot of dragonflies, a lot of spiders as well, although that's not quite an insect, it's an arachnid. Had a lot of just new life popping up, and interestingly enough, a lot of things like tortoises and terrapins are out as well. And in all the local cultures here, the traditional belief is when you see a tortoise in the road, it means that there's rain coming. because they'll move a lot more when there is rain coming, looking for a place where that water will collect in a puddle to drink. But also, it just amazes me that the terrapins come out in force straight after the rain. You'll see them so far from any water holes, and they just pop up after the rain. JP, to tell the difference between old and recent tracks takes a little bit of practice. You would actually look at the general shape of it and how clear the track is. That's one of the really good ones. So an old track is usually quite almost caved in on the sides, especially in the riverbed here. So it'll just look like a bit of a round dent in the sand. But a fresh track should still have a shape, and it should be very clear as well. You should be able to see exactly what it is. You might actually see some of the bottom layers of soil still wet or disturbed. And then as well, you would be looking for things like other animal tracks on top of those tracks. So that's a really good indication of when an animal moved, is if you have a look if something like a three-banded courser or a jackal or something like that has walked on top of those tracks. It means that because those are the nocturnal animals, they've walked on top of those tracks are maybe from yesterday and not today. But if it's fresh, if it's on top of tracks, especially tracks like if you look at emerald-spotted wood doves, all the doves that are out early in the mornings on the roads, if those tracks are actually underneath any track, that means that those tracks are incredibly fresh. So that's normally what we would look for. But it does take a bit of practice, especially on roads where it's not as easy to see the tracks. Somewhere like the riverbed, it is incredibly easy to see fresh tracks versus older tracks, because any older track, they get disturbed by other animals, by the wind, and the sides cave in. So any clear track in the riverbed is usually a good sign that it is incredibly fresh. So what I'm actually doing is I'm heading up towards a road that drives all along the northern bank of this riverbed on the right here. It's actually called Big Bend because the river bends so much. And I'm going to head onto that road because that's the direction that these tracks are heading in. And so I'm really hoping that I'll bump into either the lions or that mating pair of leopards. Is the gold prize for me today.
Here we have some interesting mushrooms. I love mushrooms, just putting it out there. They are some of the most interesting creatures around. I say creatures because they're more closely related to insects than they are to plants, believe it or not, and that's because they have a chitinous cell wall that they share with insects as opposed to plants. Very, very cool. So here we appear to have, and I say appear to because you should always, always be cautious when it comes to mushrooms. This here is a dung roundhead, for obvious reasons. And this looks like a cracked mottle gill. Both are found very often in dung. And that's because the spores of these mushrooms float out. In fact, right now it's happening. The wind is blowing spores from underneath here. These are the gills. And the spores will kind of fall as the wind blows. There you get a nice view of the gills. So as these spores fall into the wind, or carried by the wind, they land on leaves. And then elephants, this is elephant dung, elephants will consume those leaves. In fact, other herbivores will consume those leaves or grass, and then it passes through the gut, the spores in their food, and then it goes and ends up in the ground in their dung. And then they germinate. And remember that a mushroom is simply the fruiting body of a fungus. So this is the equivalent of an apple. It's just the body that allows a mushroom to put out its spores. So underground, the whole fungus, which is a kind of a network of tissues called hyphae, which are little, they look like almost like cotton wool, strings of cotton wool underground. That is the actual fungus. And that is always there. And then during our extreme rains and thunderstorms and things like that, that's when you get the fruiting bodies popping up to disperse their spores. Very, very, very cool. Both of these types of mushrooms can actually produce psilocybin, which is an hallucinogenic, but not consistently. So somebody might take this mushroom and die, while somebody else might take this mushroom and not have any effect from psilocybin, which gets converted into psilocin in your body to produce the hallucinogenic effect. Really amazing stuff. Now, when you want to identify a mushroom, you want to kind of look at the spores. That is the best way. So obviously you want to look at the actual mushroom. But if we look here with a cracked mottled gill, I'm looking for a mottled appearance in these gills. Now, you might not see it very well, but that's what I have. There's patches. The spores are black, but there's patches of black spores or darker bits of spores, lighter bits of spores, all in these gills or lamellae. That's where the spores sit and are released from. And then this here is the cap or a pileus, and this here being the stem or the stipe. I don't have a piece of paper, but what would be awesome is to be 100% sure. You would take the head off this mushroom and then you'd put it against a piece of paper and it would leave a very, very obvious spore print. And then from that spore print you can be even more sure about your ID. Jackie, you'd like to know if all mushrooms have gills? No, all mushrooms don't have gills. There's bracket fungi that you'll see them along trees like golden brackets or turkey tails. You'll see them growing along the trunk of trees. They don't have gills. They have, they kind of attached to the tree, and from the underneath spores will fall and it looks like a sponge like with little tiny holes, but there's no gills with those fungi. Kind of looks like weird plaster on the underside of those bracket fungi. There's the artist pellet as well that grow like that. They're very, very cool. Let's just have a quick look at the underneath of this little one. Oh, look how fresh those gills are. And look at the difference. You can see mottled appearance, mature spores looking a certain way. This one, much grayer. All right, well, if I find more mushrooms, of course, I'll show them to you. But we're in the Mawati now, and we're going to go on a bit of a river cruise looking for some smaller, interesting things.
Seems like Trishala's getting the notion or the reputation of becoming a mushroom master. Sure. It's It's a really interesting organism to look at, mushrooms. It's super complex. We are just entered the nice section of this pan, busy wrapping around and obviously still looking for tracks. There's a lot of zebra that have moved to and from the water over here. And we're just off this watering hole now. And obviously we're just taking our time. That's the most important thing, obviously using knowledge of the tracks, but then also animal behavior in conjunction with one another to successfully lead up an animal. But then very importantly, you also need to take your time. You cannot rush tracking, because if you rush tracking, that's where you're going to make a mistake. And it is really an art. Take your time to observe, understand and assess. So you can see over here this game trail just on the right hand side of my foot. There's a whole bunch of zebra. And the size of the track itself being quite small and petite, this would be mountain zebra. And also now I can look, the mountains are right behind us. So showing us that they would have come down early evening, they would have made their way to the watering hole along this game path or game trail, very well defined little pathway that they'll move to and from water. And then what they did is doubled back on their own tracks, and they've now moved back towards the mountain. I can see the set, I can see that they've gone over their own tracks because the set coming in is older than the set going out. And you can see right over here. Can you see that? There we go. So it looks like almost like a horse hoof, but just smaller in size.
Well, as you can see, oh, sorry, little Franklin. We just gave Franklin a fright of its life by coming around the corner, which is not uncommon. They do bust out like this quite often, and funny enough, if you're tracking, if you hear that and then coupled with a kind of a short sharp sound that they sit on a branch and make, then you often know that what you're tracking is not far away from where you are. So it's always a good animal to have when tracking, but it also gives you the fright of your life sometimes when you come round the corner and it does that to you. It's certainly not what you're expecting when you're tracking things like little lion cubs, etc. Now, we're just in the Mulawati. We were on Torchwood, but unfortunately we were struggling a little bit with our signal. We had alarm calls around the dam at Torchwood, which would indicate maybe Tundi's cub is somewhere there, just squirrels and franklins and guinea fowl and various other things calling. So we'll try and see if we can maybe get back there later this afternoon. But we've come back towards the Mulawati just to see if there's any sign potentially of Kalamba, or you never know, maybe Tingana's milling around. He's been all over the place of late. So we're just coming to check this side. It's been a very quiet morning from an animal point of view. We've seen very little bar the impalas, and please excuse Rusty's squeak. Its universal joint is giving us issues, which will be changed out today. So hopefully it won't be squeaking by this afternoon. But for now, it sounds almost like a Wahlberg's eagle talking to another Wahlberg's eagle as we squeak along. I'm surprised we don't have a flock of Wahlbergs following us at this stage with this little squeak that's happening. And they make a very similar call to what you're hearing from the car, although you're probably not actually hearing it too much over the engine, but it's loud enough for us, that's for sure. But like I say, it's been quiet from an animal front. There's been very few tracks to work with, in fact no tracks to work with so far, so we're going to try and see if we can pick up something. Riley, is it difficult to find leopards in thickets? It's difficult to find leopards full stop. It doesn't matter really where they are. They can be elusive anywhere. They have an incredible coat coloration that means that they blend in on a lot of different types of terrain, and so even in places like the desert, they can be tough to spot in those areas. On those concrete ridges in the Kalahari, you often don't see them at all. They really do blend in well. So yes, they can be tricky. We're lucky here that we have the ability to not only go off-road, but that we can track. So when we see footprints, we ourselves can get off and walk, and that often means when you're walking that you're able to pick up tracks that you wouldn't normally see, and you can access areas that maybe a car can't access, and that means that you can find them a little bit easier. But even then, as we start going through the summer period and it starts to get thicker and denser, it's going to become a lot harder to be able to actually find these guys. Oh, hello, dung beetles. You guys found yourself some fresh dung. Let's stop here. I'm just going to give myself a bit of space to work with. There we go. So you'll see there's a fair amount of activity that's taking place in this big midden over here. You'll see there's a number of dung beetles that are busy at work. It's quite common to see when there's a bit of fresh dung around. These guys pretty quickly pick it up by using their sense of smell, and they come and land in here and they begin to roll these balls out. Now, depending on the species that we have, either these individuals are going to be laying their larvae inside that ball and digging down straight where the dung pile is, or they're going to roll it out and get a nice big ball and then start rolling it away from here to find another spot to be able to do it. Amazing though, watching them when they actually do go about rolling these balls. You can see that those guys are still busy building. They're the ones that are just kind of shaping their ball, but there's one that's got a ball now that's just, oh no, it's just rolled downhill a little bit. Shame. It's always the worst thing when you see them getting to the kind of top of where they're trying to roll, and then all of a sudden it kind of loses its sort of balance and it ends up wheel spinning, engaged the flock, and off we went. They end up falling back down into the mountain or into wherever they've come from. It always is a bit depressing, but this little guy's on a serious mission this morning. You can see how fast they can actually go when they really get going, and if the terrain suits them, then they can push that little ball much quicker than people think. And you'll see every now and then that they stop and they do a little turn on top of the ball. That's not them kind of modeling or showing us themselves. That's them orientating themselves. So once they have a little wobble, so you'll see when it's pushing and it slightly wobbles, then it'll do that turn to be able to then orientate itself using the sun. Justin, yes, we can identify the dung. This is from a white rhino. It's a big dung pile from them. You'll find that these middens are spread out throughout the area. It's quite common to see these things on the side of the roads within this whole ecosystem. But the reason why we know white rhino, not black rhino, would be just because of the actual composition of the dung. If you look at it, it's all grass. There's no little sticks in there. Black rhino would have a very evident stick in its dung from the fact that it browses, not grazes. So it's pretty easy to be able to identify what it is. You can actually see that there was a bull rhino that was the one that defecated here, and so it's actually made these dung beetles' jobs slightly easier in that it broke up the dung. You can see those two kind of gouges, or that big gouge in the dung pile. That's the back feet of this rhino where he was kicking his dung and breaking it. And that broken dung is then rolled into the balls and taken away, which, like I say, it makes life easier for these dung beetles. Things like elephants, often they've got to break it apart first before they're able to then start compacting it into a little ball. Exactly. Myself saying there's a nice little runway now for these guys to roll their balls out. Been smoothed out perfectly by the back feet of this rhino. And you'll find as it heats up this morning, you're going to find a lot more of them arriving. They're typically quite active during the hot parts of the day, but they've got to be quite careful. These guys are not immune to predation. So what you'll find is often when you come across a little midden like this, when there's a hive of activity of dung beetles, is that you can find various birds that are nearby. So things like European rollers will eat these guys, ground hornbills. You'll even find things like honey badgers, mongoose that will be digging around looking, not so much for the adults, but for any little balls that are buried below that they can munch on the larvae once they develop a little bit. So it becomes a kind of whole ecosystem in its own right, just based off a bit of poop, which is pretty crazy. Nature Girl, you say you bet dung beetles have amazing calf muscles. Well, funnily enough, their calf muscles wouldn't be the ones that would be that developed. If we had to align it to our anatomy, it would actually be their biceps that would be, and triceps that would be pretty strong. Because when you watch them, they're actually pushing with their forearms. So their front legs are doing all the pushing. The back legs are just stabilizing the ball. So I would imagine the dung beetle roll would be good for one's core. So you would probably exercise your abdominals quite nicely. And then, like I say, your biceps, triceps, and forearms would certainly get a heavy workout as well. I'm pretty sure you could probably develop an exercise. Maybe that's the new big thing that's going to be developed, is the dung beetle exercise. If you got one of those yoga balls and just kind of pushed it along around a garden or something, it certainly would probably take a lot of coordination. And I'd imagine it'd be quite fatiguing by the end of it, especially if you got yourself a yoga ball that was equivalent in terms of size to body ratio like you see with these guys. Anyway, we're going to leave them to it, let them carry on, see what tracks we can find. Hopefully we'll pick up something fairly soon.
Welcome back to the mating pair of leopard search at andBeyond in Ngala. So I'm driving on one of the best roads on the entire reserve for leopards in particular. It's almost like the leopard central of andBeyond in Ngala. And we've got the riverbed on our right at the moment, and then some clearings with some trees and things all along. And it's absolutely stunning in this area. It's one of those areas that is really, really good for birds, but also in particular because it has the nice mix of the thicket from the riverine side, plus the riverbed, plus the tall trees, and then even pan systems. So there's a little pan system coming up on our left now. It's a really, really stunning area for the predators in particular. It's good enough for them to hide, but also to practice their hunting skills, because leopards in particular rely on that element of surprise. So they can't really be like a cheetah where they can run really, really fast and cover a lot of distance, or wild dogs that have so much stamina. They are incredibly fast, but oh, there's a slender mongoose in the road. There's a slender mongoose. It's gone around the corner. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, there was a slender mongoose. But yeah, these leopards will rely on the element of surprise and using the thickets to their advantage. So I'm going to keep looking for the leopards along here. I know the tracks are coming to this area. And so that's what I'm looking for, essentially. But I hope everyone managed to see that slender mongoose. That was incredible. I've actually seen a really interesting interaction between slender mongoose and snakes, because slender mongoose, there's a dragonfly flying over me as well. Slender mongooses are incredibly brave, actually. And they are particularly fond of almost irritating snakes. And I've actually seen where a black mamba and a slender mongoose were going for each other in a tree. And it was like a tall, thin bush willow, so it wasn't a massive tree. And this mamba would climb up the tree, and the slender mongoose would jump up afterwards and actually try and bite its tail. So the mamba would strike at the slender mongoose. So the mongoose would jump out of the tree, the mamba would try and get away, and then the mongoose would climb back up. And it was like this game of cat and mouse for at least 45 minutes. It was unbelievable. And eventually the mamba got away. It moved from one tree straight over to the next. But it was just one of the most insane sightings I've ever seen, because it was this constant, each of them trying to bite each other. And it just shows you how tenacious those mongooses are. And it's very similar to things like meerkats as well, like you would have seen in Tswalu. They can also be quite tenacious with snakes. But also reminds me a bit of a honey badger, which is one of my favorites around here. I've actually also seen slender mongoose eating scorpions, which is also something that you kind of think you see on TV, and you're not really going to see that much actually in person. And it's amazing. They actually dig them out of little burrows in the ground, because the scorpions make little holes underneath rocks and in little crevices. And and they dig them out and then eat them, but they actually like thrash them against the ground to get rid of the stinger or bite the stinger off completely so that the scorpion can't sting them. Unbelievable. Okay, so I'm going to keep going on this leopard search. We are now getting to the area where the tracks crossed to on this road from the river. So, wish me luck.
Here we have one Wahlberg's eagle. We did have two, but we are a little bit confused. And that is because this one that's flying off here, you just see it, is very, very, very much smaller than this female. Okay, not very, very much, but much smaller than this adult that we have here. Noticeably smaller. And now the difference between male and female is only about 300 grams or so. So we're actually wondering if that may have been the chick of our Wahlberg's eagles pair. But maybe we've just never seen them at that angle so close together. Maybe it's just male and female, because that one flew quite well. Kat says he sees something in the nest. I say I see leaves in the nest. But we'll just have to keep on visiting and see what happens. Also, the nest is quite high up, and the angle is difficult to see if there's something in there. Gotta be at the right angle. It'd be interesting if that was the chick, but considering how well it flew off, it probably is not. MGN, you say that's a nice looking bird, isn't it? Especially with that log going right through it. You may think that it's part of its beauty. There it is. It's a stunning bird. It's also a pale morph, which makes it look even prettier, in my opinion. And there's obviously the dark morph and the intermediate morph as well. But I think the pale morph looks the nicest of the Wahlberg's eagles. I think our partner may be on its way back. Just watching. Ow. If only. Listen, listen, listen. Hi, Khalil. You can hear a pitmay in the background. Yes, a red-chested cuckoo calling in the background. This is the one that was sitting next to this adult. Their fledging period is 70 to 75 days. They're quite easy to see in flight because their tail becomes quite straight, so they almost look like a flying cross. As opposed to a wedge-like shape to the tail as they fly. I guess I have to come back here this afternoon. Okay, calling. There it is, sawing. Oh, actually, there it is. Coming back this way. Awesome. I'm going to have to visit here more often and actually figure out who's who, because this bird was very much smaller than the adult. Maybe I've not seen them so closely together, the male and female. Or maybe it is the chick who has fledged finally.
We're sitting here at Leopard Dam, just feeling the temperature rise. Thought we'd just enjoy a lovely moment at the Waterhole, listening to the sounds of the bush. Oh, but now there's an airplane about to fly over, so I guess we won't be listening to bush sounds too much. We'll be looking at what's around. There's nothing much happening yet at the Waterhole. There's a few buffalo weavers coming down to their nests, fixing them up, looking at them. There's a few terrapins, it looks like, on the opposite side there where the animals often drink. Can you see that side there, BK? Is that terrapins there at the water's edge, or is that a tortoise? Just a bit more to the left. There's a shiny, it's a terrapin. You see it there, BK? Just zoom in a bit more. It is a tortoise, look at that. Looks like a leopard tortoise having a drink. That's pretty awesome. Now, you don't see them drinking too often, but they do need to drink. And if that is a leopard tortoise, which I suspect it is, it's one of the few tortoises that can also swim, which is interesting. They're able to do a little bit of a doggy paddle to swim in the shallows. Wow, this plane is flying right over us. It looks like maybe a game counting plane. So they're doing censuses around the area to figure out how many animals there are around here, which is very useful because you need to be able to estimate figures for conservation purposes. A super important job. Hopefully they're doing very well. It's a lovely day for it, nice and still and calm, and bright and blue skies. Gorgeous.
You just found a leopard tortoise. Okay. Got me excited there. Mike, we've been enjoying these beautiful yellow flowers, the tribulus, or dibblekey as it's known as. And the bees are very busy around these flowers right now. If we can catch sight of them, you can actually see that they've filled little, almost like little buckets on their hind legs, where they actually store pollen when they're moving from flower to flower. They're actually fighting one another as well. There comes another one. Obviously, very important pollinating species, not only for flowers like this, but fruit around the world. Bees play a vital role. So without them, we are losing a massive and a very important function that gets performed by these incredible vectors. That's obviously why we have to protect bees. So if you find a bee in your house, don't whack it. Find a cup, place the cup over it, and then take a thin piece of paper, I don't know, you can get a thick piece of paper. But take a piece of paper and then slide the piece of paper in between the item, the bee, or even a beetle or a spider. Slide it underneath it and basically creating a barrier between the paper and the glass. Very easy way to remove insects. And obviously everyone you save, you're ensuring your own safety in the future. And I mean, that yellow color must just be irresistible to those bees. Insects are typically attracted to yellow forms of flowers, and if you think about the diversification of flowers, that is in conjunction with insects. The diversification, the occurrence, insects play a massive role with these beautiful and colorful bodies. Kalahari scrubber busy giving his sharp whistles there. And obviously flying from flower to flower, having that ability to fly is a huge advantage. And they make quick work. You can see how quickly that little bee enters a flower and then scurries around it to collect the pollen. In the same right, they've also got a little tube-like feeding appendage that they can lap up nectar. They collect pollen, obviously, to take back to the nest. Pollen's used for building, it's used for feeding. Nectar's obviously used to fuel them, but then also nectar's fed to the developing larvae inside the chamber. Also to the queen bee. So it's a very specific role that these individuals are playing right now, not only ensuring their own safety, but the safety of the colony as well. And it shows you the way off. There's nothing for free. If you want something, you got to do something. Or what you give is what you get in return. So it's a beautiful way out where the flower is obviously producing and providing a very important source of food and energy, but yet what the bee is doing is vital. The flower putting a lot of time, a lot of attention and energy into the flower itself, the petals, the color, the smell, all in hopes of being pollinated. And those grains of pollen, very important to be transferred from one flower to another.
I really like that, Kyle. They really do put in so much effort. Smelling good, looking good, violet colors, warming, so many things. And here we have a scrub hare, which I also think likes to eat flowers. It's a middle of the day scrub hare, or rather light sunshine scrub hare. Usually we see them in the darkness. It's being risky. Oh, we have another friend with similar ears to the scrub hare. Strangely come up to see us. She just walked, that was a kudu, everyone. She just walked to the edge, peeped at us, and then walked a little further, had a good look at us, and now has run off. I wonder if you can hear the quack, 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 quack of a foam nest frog behind us. Quack, 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 quack. Something like that. It almost sounds like a monkey alarm calling, but very, very calm. This scrub here is also very calm and relaxed. Let's come quite close to it. Because of their good camouflage, sometimes you don't notice it until you're right close to them. And that's their strategy. Keep very still until you get the opportunity to bolt away. And even while we were close like this, it decided it's going to eat some grass. When an animal feels comfortable enough to eat, that's when you know that it's a good, relaxed sighting. Animal is not stressed. Although, with scrub hares, very seldom do they not look stressed. Here we created a collective noun for them. We call it a panic of scrub hares. Global English School in Thailand. You'd like to know, and firstly, welcome aboard. You'd like to know what are its main predators? Oh, unfortunately for the scrub hare, everything will have a go at it. Leopards, snakes, aerial predators like the eagles we just saw before. Whole assortment of eagles, owls, other small cats like African wildcat, even jackals. They are very convenient and are probably very tasty food source for many, many, many predators. A lion may also take them, but it would only be because they had the opportunity to take them, because they have a pride. And for a quick snack, this is what you're looking for, basically. It's quick and it's snack-sized. Lisa, you say, what big eyes you have. All the better to see you with. Imagine in this kind of sunlit morning, its pupils are still so dilated. I think that's what makes them look like they're always in a panic. But in fact, that's their usual eye dilation, and it will dilate even wider in the evenings. Now you see how dome-like their eye is, firstly, and when you look at it front on, you can actually see the eye protrude out of the face. That's very important if you're a prey species, and the fact that the eyes are placed on the side of the head, so that gives you a 360 view of what's going on around you, which is why these guys react so quickly to danger. But it also means that your depth of field is compromised, so you may not be able to perceive distance very well. But that doesn't matter. As long as you can see that there's a predator coming and you can hop away very quickly, that's what matters. This is a very, very relaxed scrub hare. You want to jump on board with me? Leopard lover, you say those ears are huge. How do they cool down? That's exactly what those ears are for. They're so huge, and the skin on them is so thin that all the little structures, little arteries, blood vessels in that ear. Come on, show them to us. Show them to us. Oh, it's now just showing us the top part covered with fur. There's intricate, look at that. All those blood vessels in those ears, large surface area. So the blood that's moving through those vessels gets cooled at the surface and then transported back around the body. And that means that those big ears actually a huge cooling system for the blood. It can cool all that blood while it circulates through the body, much like elephants having big ears, large surface area, thin skin, with all those vessels very close to the skin. So they can transfer heat from the body out through that thin skin, cooling the blood and then back into circulation. There, we're getting a nice look. Now, when the sun is behind it, then you see really how ridiculously complex the network of blood vessels are on their ears. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at that. And they'll often get ticks around that area also because the blood is close to the skin. Ticks can get access to nice amounts of it. Oh, chomp, chomp, chomp. Oh, so cute. Oh, hey. That's the closest I've ever... That was... It was a very medium-sized...
Let's go this way. Ditto. Welcome back. We've got a fantastic bird here on the right-hand side. There's another one. Fantastic bird called a spike-heeled lark. Very nice to see. And we're just trying to get a view of it. There it is. Fantastic. Lovely. So what we're going to be seeing, there's a slightly decurved beak. So there's a slight bend downwards on the bird. It's got a uniform brownish color, little white throat patch, and then very, very distinctly, it's got a very short tail. And these guys are busy feeding now. What a fantastic view of a spike-heeled lark. So normally seen in groups, so we found like a scone, on like a scone. Barry. But really nice birds to see. If you're into the LBJs, looking at these smaller, inconspicuous ones is a real treat. Hence the name spike-heeled lark. It's got a very long, sharp hind toe. Very nice birds to see. And this is typical habitat we would find a spike-heeled lark. Larks like these grassy sections where they would be found on the ground most of the time. Can be found in trees or small shrubs calling. It's not uncommon. And then obviously taking a wide range of insects and seeds, where that beak would be a perfect tool to obviously utilize that food item or sources. Oh wow, look at that. Yes, Indigo Girl, new bird for you, fantastic. A lifer this week it's been a week, last week, was a week of lifers. I mean, it does not happen for me that often as well. Last week I had 3 lifers in 1 week. That's just an uncommon week, so to say, for myself. But well, that's great to hear, Indigo Girl, that this is a lifer or a new species for you. As I said, very inconspicuous and very commonly overlooked because of its general plain Jane appearance. But you can see that beak being very distinctive. It's got a nice bend to it. It's scurrying around in undergrowth. This is where they feed. This is also where they would make their nests, which is typically a little cup-shaped nest concealed within a tuft of grass itself. And very sneaky at that. Imagine now, for a bird making a nest in a tree, okay, that's quite a task, and to conceal it, they do it pretty well. But imagine making a nest on the ground. I mean, they've got to be so sneaky to ensure the safety of that nest is unreal. Well, that was such a treat. Well, now that we've lost the visual of that little spike-heeled lark, what we're going to do is continue west. We're basically circling these blocks, and we've done the northern and then as well as the western section of this block. We're traveling out west, so we're on the southern side of this block, and we are moving along this road. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to start up and move west over here and look at how straight this road is. It's unbelievable. Some of these cut lines are like dead straight. I mean, look at that. Look how far one can see. There's the eastern clapper lark in flight there. Look at that. It's busy displaying. You got it, Owen? Almost directly above the road now. Look how high that bird is flying. See it? Look above the road. Look at it. It's just flapping its wings up there. It's a little hard. It's going higher. Oh, no. Okay, it's very far. So we're going to continue out west over here. And what we're still busy on is trying to find those elusive cheetah tracks. Starting to warm up a bit, which is great for me. And hopefully, once it does get to that point, we can get a sight of a beautiful little cheetah. Also a brilliant vantage point. You can see how far we can see off this point over here, spotting any movement. We're going to send you off to one of our colleagues, and we'll see you when you get back this side.
It's the bit, mevrou. It's a red-chested cuckoo, everyone. It's amazing that it hasn't flown away. So we're going to enjoy it for everything that it has. Oh, look at that. Turn around, let us see your red chest. And then call for us. I hear these birds so often, you seldom get to see them. Oh, there we go. It's getting dive bombed by some other smaller birds. Didn't manage to see what they were. That's why it keeps lifting up its head. So we can hear when it does call. I hope that it will. Oh. And off it goes. That was lovely. At least we got to see it. It's turning out to be a very warm and a very birdy morning, and I quite like that. Well, off we go. We've had a look at the Wahlberg eagle's nest from here. Didn't see a chick inside, but we'll keep on checking. And now we'll go on Mamba Loop and see what it has to offer.
Welcome back, everyone, finally, to andBeyond Phinda. And we've managed to find a pretty exciting sighting here. There's 4 lions, sorry. You can only really see 3 of them at the moment, but there's 4 lions lying on a termite mound. And just in front of them, there are 2 white rhinos, probably around 10 meters away from the lions. And then maybe 100, maybe 150 meters away is an elephant bull drinking at a watering hole. What a scene. So we had a few issues getting ourselves out of that leopard sighting earlier on, and we had to change a tire, and so we've been out of action for a while, but we're glad to be back with you this morning. See the lions just lying up in the top of that termite mound, and where that elephant is drinking is one of the last remaining water sources in this part of the reserve, and so it's tactical positioning from the lions, well, especially from the lioness. So it's one lioness here with her 3 sub-adult males, and yeah, she knows that wildebeests, zebras will have to come eventually to that water and drink, and so she might try to ambush them on their way. Now the rhinos are about, I don't know how well you guys can all see them, but every now and then you just hear an ear flicking, and they are literally less than 10 meters away from the lions. You just see the ear flicking every now and then. Pele, thanks for the question. How many prides are there on Phinda? So there are 3 prides at the moment. There is 1 pride up in the north of Phinda, which we refer to as the North Pride, and then there are 2 prides down in the south. I was just going to say now, you see that lioness sitting up and stretching. The sun has just come out from behind the clouds, and it's really, really getting warm. So I think those lions are going to head for some shade. But Pele, there's 1 pride in the north, which we call the North Pride, and then there's 2 prides in the southern parts of Phinda. And so one is more to the southeastern corner of Phinda, and then the one is southwestern corner, which is this pride here, which we call the Ngala Pride. And then there's a pride slightly more to the east of Phinda, the southeast of Phinda, which is referred to as the Mountain Pride. So this pride, the Ngala Pride, has got this lioness with the 3 young males, and then there are 2 other lionesses. One of the other lionesses has got 2 much younger cubs, around about 7 or 8 months old now. And then the 3rd lioness, she doesn't have any cubs at the moment. You see that young male's trying to follow his mom. Into some shade. No ways, guys, there's some buffaloes coming as well. There's some buffaloes coming up over the hill just behind the elephant. Buffaloes, elephant, rhino. Oh, there's a rhino standing up. And lions. amazing.
Like a zoo.
You see that big white rhino now is facing towards the lions. Definitely knows that the lions are there. Oh, there's a warthog. There's a warthog as well. Do you see the warthog, Glenn?
Yeah.
I'm just watching the lions, but for now they don't seem too interested in that warthog. I think the warthog's probably aware of the lions already, and the lions know that the warthog's aware of them, so they won't try to hunt it. Now you might be looking at the buffaloes thinking, well, the lions are definitely going to go try and hunt the buffaloes, but it's very rare, it's very unusual for lions on Phinda to hunt buffaloes. So there's an incredible abundance of game on Phinda, and the lions tend to go for easier targets. So as some of you may know, buffaloes are very tough and resilient animals, but they are very aggressive as well, and they will actively defend one another from lions, and they'll defend themselves from lions. And so they have those big powerful horns, and they are themselves powerful animals. Oh, there comes some wildebeest as well. My word, look at that. And so because the buffaloes are more willing to defend themselves than any of the other animals, the lions on Phinda mostly tend to avoid buffaloes because there are so many other much easier targets, like wildebeest, like zebra, like warthog, which won't really defend themselves, but they will just try to run away. You see how excited they get when they see the water. Jackie, I mean, so there's actually two rhinos. I can just see the ears of another one flicking, and I think that second one that we can see, so the one on the left-hand side, the left of those two rhinos, is still lying down. But the rhinos definitely, Jackie, they're not fazed by the lions. They know that if they had to even flick their head in the direction of the lions would run away. I think the lions are quite comfortable because they're up on a termite mound, but lions would usually be very intimidated by rhinos if they were on the same sort of level as them, but because of the fact that the lions are up on a mound, it might be slightly more difficult for a rhino to quickly get at the lions. And so those lions, just because they're slightly higher and they're almost above the rhino, are feeling a little bit more comfortable. Zebra, wildebeest, warthog, buffalo, elephant, rhino, lion. That's unbelievable. Oops. Nkululeko, are there any records of lions hunting a rhino? Yes, there are. So I haven't heard too many stories of it, but last year on Phinda, early last year, the mountain pride, so not this pride, but the mountain pride actually was seen feeding on a rhino calf. We estimated the calf to be around 3 years old, which is incredibly unusual. But because of the fact that we only saw the lions feeding on the rhino, we assume that the lions killed the rhino, but we can't be too sure. The thing is, with lions, they will scavenge as well. So if the rhino died of natural causes, they would still go and feed on it. But usually lions will avoid rhinos. The skin is so thick and tough to even open up the rhino carcass and start trying to feed on that meat is a huge task. But I mean, before that, they have to try to kill the rhino, which is also a mammoth task. The rhino's got incredibly thick skin and got that huge, it's just a huge animal, so it's got a very big neck. And so in order to suffocate it, I mean, a lion wouldn't even be able to put its mouth around the rhino's nostrils to try and suffocate it. So it would be a really tough thing to actually try to kill a rhino. But Nonkululeko, they have their definite records of lions killing rhinos. But I think this is just an amazing scene. And so we're not going to go anywhere. I think we might try just get a different position and see if we can see what the view's like from different angles, and we're going to send you off to one of our colleagues.
Well, there we go. It's a pair. Hardly ever get to see male and female together. And that's a very efficient tactic on how one remains safe. But now through the breeding period, this is when we quite prominently would find pairs moving around. That's a pair of steenbok. Steenbok, translated from Afrikaans, means stone buck. So just their behavior when they're sitting and resting, they can physically look like stones. But they've crested over the dune and they have left us. We are still continuing west here, looking for any tracks. So we have just gone over the first dune. So where this steenbok crested is an actual dune. And it runs basically at a southwestern position. And as Owen's coming forward, you can see in front of us, here's the next dune. So what we are in now is what they refer to as the dune street. And if you think about the vegetation within this section in between the dunes, it's certain grasses and certain trees and shrubs that would inhabit this section in between the dunes. And with that, you'd have animals occurring here because of the specialized vegetation. It's quite a remarkable and complex section through Tswalu's very diverse topography. So when I use the terminology topography, it is the physical layout of the land that one can see. And what affects that is the stuff that's underneath, the geomorphology. And all this stuff was blown in by wind to create these undulating dunes.
Look at the madness that we have here at Ndlovu Dam. There are currently more than 30 elephants swimming in the dam, and more than 20 elephants have already left the dam. It's crazy. They can feel that the temperature is going to soar into the high 30s, maybe even the low 40s, and they are taking full advantage of the fact that there is plenty of water here at Ndlovu Dam. Look at it. So much splashing going around that the water is even churning up into a white foam. Here's a herd of elephants with youngsters sticking to the sidelines, whilst the big bulls all play in the mud and in the center of the waterhole. It really is a spectacular scene. Something we don't see often is this many elephants at the waterhole. You see them at the waterhole often, but not this many elephants. Including the ones that already left, might well be the majority of the elephants that can be found on Pridelands at any one moment, which is really, really lucky. I'm sure you can hear all the splashing going on. I can barely hear myself. Look at those little ones making their way amongst the mothers. Oh, big splashes, having nice swims. Must be so gentle. The mothers have to be so gentle with the babies. Look at the mother there, just pushing the baby out the way so she can also have a little bit of a swim. of a dunk. Got to be so gentle. Those babies could easily slip over in the water, and then if a larger elephant slips over, it could be real trouble. Oh, a tiny baby. Tiny baby without even any tusks. It's having the best time. A little bit nervous to go into the water directly with all these other big elephants playing around there. But you can see that one mother and her tiny baby just enjoying the edge of the water. There's another tiny baby. You can not help but have the biggest smile on your face when you watch these tiny, relatively uncoordinated elephant calves playing in the water. So now it looks like the herd is making their way out. Too many elephants in the water. Starlight, this is a waterhole, but with the elephants churning it up constantly like this, it is turning into a bit of a mud bath. The more they play in it like this, the more they stir up the sediments, and it turns into quite a muddy soup. Now, it's still drinkable, as you see, some of the elephants still drinking the water, but it won't be for long. As the water level drops, it's going to become thicker and thicker with mud, and not as pleasant to drink. But when you're desperate, and there's not much water in this area, when you're desperate, you'll drink whatever you can get, even if it doesn't taste that great. Oh, what an awesome scene. There's still more elephants that haven't even gone into the water yet. So we're going to stick around here. We're not going anywhere. Let's watch and enjoy this scene.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda, everyone. And we've just gotten ourselves another position for a different view. And you can see the rhinos just moving off a little bit now, but two of the three young male lions watching very attentively those rhinos moving off. Still lots of action at the Waterhole. Wildebeest all chasing each other, but the elephant is quite grumpy. He doesn't want to let anyone drink at the moment. So the elephant is chasing every animal away that comes and tries to drink. Buffaloes are quite brave. They are the ones that are closest to the elephant. Oh, there's a wildebeest coming straight towards the lions.
The lions have gone down.
And the lions have laid down. Oh, guys, this is perfect. Just depends which side of the rhinos they go. Oh, back side of the rhinos. Let's see what happens here. Oh, one of the wildebeest has spotted the lion. Now, we don't know where Mom is. We don't know where the lioness is. But we do know that the two young males are just on the other side of that turn line. You can just see the one's bum sticking up. So I think they've tried to get into position a little bit too late, and one of those wildebeest spotted them. Yeah, the wildebeest are now moving off. Sure, that was close. Yeah, I agree. That girl, the sighting is incredible. To see, 4 of the big 5 in one sighting is incredible. And more. I mean, 4 of the big 5 and more. You see these wildebeest chasing each other now. They will very quickly forget about those lions and could potentially make a mistake and go too close. Now remember, we don't know where the lioness is, so she could be lying somewhere in a bit of an ambush position. Just waiting for one of those wildebeest to make a mistake. See the oxpeckers descending onto the rhinos there. Amazing scene. And the rhinos also now starting to feel the sun. So we've actually managed to find ourselves a really nice shady spot in the shade of some trees on the edge of this, well, it's the edge of a dry watering hole with that one pool where the elephant is busy drinking. And but I can tell you, before we moved into the shade, the sun was scorching hot, and I'm sure those lions are going to start panting soon and wanting to head to the shade. But the rhinos as well, now that it's warmed up a little bit, they could possibly move towards that water. There's also a mud wallow next to the cleaner water, and they may lie down in the mud for a little bit and then move off to some shade. Well, that elephant has been there literally since we arrived, and he hasn't stopped drinking. By the looks of things, he hasn't been to the mud wallow yet, so I think he could be here for a while still. He might finish drinking and then do the same as those rhinos could do. Head towards the mud wallow, throw some mud on his body. But he will have to go and feed soon as well. I'd say that's an interesting question. How does an elephant measure the amount of water that it takes into its trunk? So I'm actually not too sure. I don't think he does measure. I think he fills his trunk up as much as he can, and then sprays the water down into his throat. So I do know that an elephant bull of this sort of size can hold between 10 and 15 liters of water in his trunk at a time. Of course, he doesn't want to sniff or suck that water up into his nose and actually sniff it up into his sinuses, because that wouldn't be very pleasant. So he will be able to feel as the water is going up his trunk to the point where he doesn't want to take any more water in, and then he will lift his trunk or lift his head up and tip his trunk into his mouth, and then spray that water down his throat. But I don't think an elephant measures how much water goes into his trunk. I think he uses feeling to tell when he should stop sucking water up. He knows based on feel when he's got enough water in his trunk. And it's just one after the other. He's just taking full chunk of water and spraying it down his throat. I was just looking up. There's a Warburg's eagle circling above us. I think with that elephant still busy drinking, we'll sit here and watch him for a little bit, because I'm hoping that he is going to go to the mud wallow, which is just next to the watering hole, and we're going to send you off to another location, see what they've got there.
Absolutely no lone animals at this waterhole. A couple of warthogs that have been wallowing in the mud, just pushed away slightly by all the elephants that have taken up residence in the waterhole. There's plenty of them, as you can see. No lonely elephant bulls either. Everyone's in it to win it today, having the time of their lives. And speaking of being together, once again, just like to remind you guys to become a WildEarth explorer by visiting wildearth.tv/explorers, where the new WildEarth Explorers program can bring you together with other like-minded people. And by supporting WildEarth, you can also potentially win some fantastic prizes and all sorts of benefits. Come and join the community. That's wildearth.tv/explorers. We'll get to see cool stuff like this all the time. We'll keep you updated regularly and let you know what's going on in all the different locations. Because I tell you what, this happens all day long. Always a pool party here at Ndlovu Dam. All day, every day. So these are now all elephant bulls. It's a spectacular amount of them. Some young, some older. So you can see the older elephant bulls at the back there. They're busy wallowing themselves in the mud, splashing the mud on themselves, whilst the younger bulls play. There's a young bull approaching us right now, coming to investigate and see what we're about. Hey there, old chap, or young chap. Yes, yes. We can stop right there, thank you. That's close enough. You look very moist. So elephants often come to investigate what we are. They know full well that we're around because of the fact that our camp is right here next to the waterhole. Sometimes they like to push their luck a little bit and come to investigate the vehicle up close, especially the younger bulls. There's a slightly bigger and older bull, and you can see he's having none of it. He says, yeah, I know what they are. Boring, I'm going to keep moving. It's always interesting when the elephants come to investigate. They're such massive animals, and you really have to respect the fact that they're very powerful. So you saw there, I just put my hand up quickly just to let him know that we are here, and I didn't want him to come any closer, and he also respected that, which is good. Lots of playful activity with elephants, play mounting, practicing, strengthening their back legs, pushing and shoving each other. Elizabeth, elephants always, to me, seem happy when they're at water. I mean, imagine having to walk around, Elizabeth, all day with a body that weighs 3,000 kilograms, 6,000 pounds or more, sometimes significantly more than that. It must get so tiring. Your heels must get tired, your legs are sore, your neck muscles. So going into the water just relieves all of that pressure. All the weight of these elephants' bodies is basically supported by the water. It makes it so much more comfortable for them, I'm sure. It seems like a few of the individuals are slowly starting to make their way out the water. Although I don't believe that there's going to be no elephants at the dam at all today. I think there's always going to be at least one elephant here or there. A good spa session. And you can see all the white foam being churned up as the elephants play. Beverly, the tusks start showing at different ages depending on the genetics of the particular elephant. But as a general rule, you can sort of say that at about 3 years old, the tusks start to emerge out of an elephant. Just at the top lip there, the speed at which they grow, the size at which they grow, and the age that they first erupt can change dramatically between elephants. Some elephants never grow tusks at all. and will always be quite small, or will always be quite small, and that's purely genetic. There's a reserve in South Africa called the Tembe Elephant Reserve, and those elephants there are world-renowned for having massive tusks, and they're in a population which has never changed or removed from that area. Most parts of South Africa, the elephants at one stage or other were missing from there during, the time when there was a lot of hunting happening, a lot of human expansion, a lot of animals got wiped out of certain areas, and all these elephants that you're seeing in front of us right now have come back to the area, sometimes from far afield, to repopulate these areas. But the Tembe elephants have never been missing from the Tembe Reserve. They've always been there. So those are massive tusked elephants. Ooh, big fight. Big fighting. Oh, my head is in the way. These two young bulls are having quite a tussle. Lots of dust and mud flying as they push and shove each other. It could be really interesting, actually. If they push each other on this slippery mud, you might find them falling over, which could be equal parts comical and, oh yeah, that's right, intimidate him. Splash that mud. The equivalent of a like a buffalo bull scratching its feet in the dust, stamping its feet. Or I think slightly less intimidating when you're an elephant playing in the mud. Okay, now they're he's kicking the mud at him. Oh, it's all fun and games till someone gets mud in the eye. That's so funny. It almost looks like they're trying to throw mud at each other. I'm sure it's not the case. I think they're just trying to cover themselves in mud, but it does look that way. So what they do is they suck water up and then also grab a trunk full of a mud clod, and they spray it and throw it at the same time to cover themselves in the mud. It's not so easy for them to roll in the mud. Sometimes elephants will do stuff like this with their ears open, standing tall, to make themselves seem larger and more intimidating to a rival. Now, neither of these elephants are big enough to really fight for the dominance of females, but both of them have fairly decent-sized tusks for elephants of their size. So they're probably going to be formidable in about 20 years. Got to be so careful. So easy to injure each other with those sharp tusks, especially when there's 3,000 kilograms pushing behind them. Oh, see, I feel like that one there got a bit of a tusk in an uncomfortable spot, maybe on the side of its trunk, and it quickly spun itself around and moved away. So you can see it's basically a play fight. They're not trying to hurt each other, and the one at the back, although he's following him, he's not chasing and pressing his advantage. He's just following on their friends. These two bulls might spend years and years and years together moving through the bush because they're still quite young. Only much later in life might they start to become more solitary big bulls. Oh, careful. They trip over a stick there. Oh no, you've lost the high ground. You know what that means. Don't try it. Well, we are enjoying this scene, so we're going to stick around, but in the meantime, we'll send you off to a different location.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda, everyone. And look at those tiny little goslings. So we've just come around for a closer view of the mud wallow and the waterhole where the elephant is. And look at those tiny little goslings following very close to mom or dad there. Looks like mom. Yeah, they're definitely next to mom. I'm not too sure where she's taking them, why she would take them away from the water and straight towards the zebras. It's quite a dangerous spot to be under zebras' feet, especially when they keep stampeding away when the elephant chases How sweet are they? There you go, you see? Oh, it's not a good place for the little goslings. Oh, the zebras are really chasing each other.
And the goslings?
I think they've managed to avoid danger that time. But look at the scene that we have here now. So we've come around and to get a better view of the elephant. Oh, and the rhinos are just behind us. You might have heard that snorting sound. That was a rhino. Now we've noticed with that elephant, he's actually, so this area is completely dry. It's completely dried up of any watering holes. So we actually pump water in here to where this elephant is feeding at the moment, and where he's got his trunk is the source of the water, and he's actually taking it straight from the source. Now we have noticed, and you might see just below that tusk, there's like something white hanging down. It looks like a piece of bark or something like that, but it's actually not. I had a look with binoculars, and it looks like he's got a wound there. Oh, did you see that? He's got a wound there, and that is actually oozing gunk and pus that's coming out of his out of that hole in his trunk. You see how he wipes it with his trunk? Also maybe a reason why he's a bit grumpy and he doesn't want to let anyone come and drink. But he has been tolerating the odd warthog that's been brave enough to go into that into that little waterhole where he is now. But he doesn't want to let the zebras drink. Yes, MGN, it is quite a rare scene to see, especially to have this sort of congregation of different species. It's really, really not common. I mean, we had six mammal species in one frame, and in our immediate vicinity now, we've still got all those different species of mammals, which is really unique. But it comes back to the water factor that I mentioned, is that this area is very, very dry at the moment, and so we are at pretty much the only remaining water source, and water is life, so it's the reason why all these animals have come to the same area. So they come here for water, and then they disperse to their different areas where they're going to be feeding and moving for the day. And I think a little bit of a coincidence and luck and timing on our side that we are here at the right time, that all of them are here at the same time. The warthog wants a head-to-head challenge with the elephant. Maybe well, just watch the elephant. What he's been doing is flicking his trunk at the zebras when they come too close. We'll see how long he tolerates that warthog. But the elephant is definitely still getting water. I'm just not sure how much. He's quite cool. quite cool with that warthog. Yeah, we're gonna stay here, guys. I think it's quite exciting, and there's things happening all the time. So we're just gonna sit and enjoy this while you go off to another live location.
All right, cresting over the third dune, we came across this very large item laying here. And we thought we had to do a little investigation just to see what is going on. There's no tracks around this large empty shell. So, it gives us indication it might have been a little while ago. There's also no other ostrich eggs here. So if this was a nest site to where these eggs hatched, we would find multiple eggs within a clutch. Obviously a female produces an egg every 2 days, 48 hours, which is quite remarkable. I'm going to bring it a bit closer, Owen. Alright, I'm going to pick it up. You can see that I'm not disturbing anything over here. Site is long, obviously long used, and also just very important to make sure there's no other eggs laying around here so that we're not disturbing anybody. But I just want to show you the thickness of this wonderful shell. I'm going to bring it right up close and personal here to Owen, and you can get a nice close-up on the thickness of the shell. Look at that, up to about 2 millimeters thick. It is the thickest and largest egg laid by any bird. I mean, this egg can weigh about 1 to about 1.5 kilograms, and the length of it is about 15 centimeters in length. Very large shell, and remarkable structure to keep this little developing embryo safe through its developing stages. But unbelievable to see that. Look at that.
These elephants, we were looking at the ones at the Waterhole, but then these two started having a big old fight once again. Don't back away too much. We behind you. Wouldn't like to get an elephant bum sitting on our car. Oh, but I might have to. Yes, I know, you the winner. Did you hear that trumpet? That was very funny. These two are having a proper little argument. I think, we're talking about how these elephants can sometimes spend years and years together before, becoming solitary or, finding a different group. Maybe they're having a bit of an argument. You see how that one has got his tail risen, held his tail up, and that's a typical sign that an elephant's very uncomfortable. So perhaps the fight got a little bit too aggressive, and he was a bit annoyed about it, because he's even splashing his foot when he went to the water there. Elephants show so much emotion. They're so intelligent that you can really tell their mood. Like, this elephant was clearly annoyed about something. The way he approached the water and splashed his feet in there, and the way he's holding his tail up. He's really unhappy about something. See, he was even walking in the water aggressively, splashing around like a tantrum. But his friend is coming. They're about to start arguing again. And the one out of the water seems much more calm. His tail is hanging down. He's not doing any aggressive movements. Butterfly, I am sure that elephants could smell a human being and know that they've smelt that human before. And I mean, if we had a close relationship with these animals, let's say if they were, orphaned elephants that were raised, of course they would recognize their handlers and their and that kind of stuff. But these are wild elephants, so they don't know who I am and they don't know who BK is, but they certainly might be able to smell us and know that, hey, this is something I've smelled before. And as long as we always have positive interactions with these animals, i.e. sitting quietly, not making too much noise, not being aggressive with them, then they should always associate that smell that they smell with something which is not harmful or dangerous to them in any way. So they will be calm around us. That's what we always tell our students. As you know, this Waterhole is literally right next to our student camp. And so we tell the students often, when elephants walk through the camp, keep out of their way, keep quiet, be respectful of them, and then they'll always associate the camp and the people in and around the camp with positive interactions. Oh, big fight, big push. So that elephant's missing the tip of its trunk there. It can happen in a variety of different ways. But yeah, so essentially, I don't think they know who I am, or any of the students or the instructors, but they'll recognize the scent and know that, hey, this is not a dangerous place or a dangerous person, which is good to know. If we would start chasing these elephants all the time, every time they came towards the camp and giving them all sorts of grief, then of course they'll still need to come here because they want the water of the dam, but they would just be much more aggressive when they come through the camp because they'd feel like they need to push their weight and fight a bit. Well, there's something very interesting that's just landed on me, and I don't know if you'd like to try and get this on this camera, BK. I don't know what this is, but it looks a bit like a type of a weevil. It's a very interesting looking bug, and I'm sure I could find it easily enough once I look into an insect book. But look at that little thing. See, when I said it looks like a weevil, it's got the typical weevil mouth part, that long, slender proboscis, which it uses to pierce into the seed husks. Very interesting little bug. Very well camouflaged. I'm sure it probably looks like a seed of some sort of a plant or maybe a dried leaf. Looks like it's going to take off maybe. What an interesting little bug. Have you ever seen a bug like this before, BK? You have seen it? I think I might have seen them before, but it's the first one that's ever come so close to me. That's really awesome. Sometimes insects that have bright colors like this are what we call aposematic, meaning they're showing off that they're brightly colored to warn predators of danger. So this one might have some toxic substance inside of it. I don't think it can sting, and I certainly don't think it can bite me, but it's got some sort of chemical defense probably. So as long as I don't disturb it or cause it any reason to be concerned, it will be quite calm. Same with bees. If you ever have a bee that lands on you, don't freak out, don't panic. Oh, look at that. Oh, wow, look at that beautiful wings that it has. So the outside wings, these outside ones are wing coverts, not actual wings themselves. It's the little part underneath that are the wings. So this is a shield that protects the wings from being damaged. That was awesome. It's actually a really cool looking insect. As I was saying, even if a bee lands on you, don't worry about it, don't panic. It's not going to sting you for no reason. It will only sting you if you tried to squeeze it or you did something. James, was it James? Yes. James, thank you so much for that. James says that is a net-winged beetle. Which is really cool. Net-winged beetle. And now you can see the net on the wing coverts there. See that? The network of veins. Let's see if it opens its wings again. Oh, look at that. Goodbye. Thanks for joining us. Net-winged beetle. You were really cool. I liked you a lot. It's always nice when little creatures come to land on you. I always have spiders that jump on me somehow. I think as we drive around in the summer, a lot of our roads are not well driven, so there's always spider webs, and they always have things like spiders falling on us, which is always nice to be able to point out. Unless you've got a fear of spiders, in which case it's not so cool.
Indeed, just like it's always amazing when the Duke of Djuma pops out and shows himself as well. As you can see, he's having a little bit of a nap, but Tingana has graced us with his presence, which is always a really, really good start to 2 weeks at Djuma. He's such a cool cat, and he's looking absolutely magnificent. You can see he's lying down in a nice little shady spot. He's at a little pan that is drying out at the moment, just inside Simambili. Right on the boundary with Djuma, but he's having a little nap, and I don't think he's going to go anywhere. The temperature has skyrocketed in the last hour, so it's warm, hence why he's found himself a place to lie down. You can also see that his stomach is quite big. There's a little bit of roundness to it, so I suspect that maybe he's had a little meal, maybe he's had something like an Impala lamb or something like that, and so he came for water and is now just resting and taking it easy, but he's absolutely beautiful. He seems to kind of be drinking out of a youth fountain of late, because it's almost like his condition is just getting better by the day. He's even his face is seemingly not as scarred up, but it's obviously just his ears that give him away, because you find that his ears are a little bit more tatty than a lot of the other males. Also, I mean, there's not many males in this section that will sleep like this in our proximity. You'll find like Matsweri, Mulawati, which would be two potential other males, and that would come up the side. They wouldn't be nearly as relaxed as this and allow us to be so close out in daylight. Both of those cats would have moved off and tried to hide in daylight, and at night they'll come out. So it's quite easy when you see him. You kind of know straight away that it's him before anything else, just from his attitude towards the vehicles. But like I say, really good to see him. He seems to just be on a completely different sort of level these days. It was interesting last week. I managed to spend some time with him. And, prior to seeing him last week, he was obviously aging a little bit. We knew he was mating, but he seemed to be portraying a lot more nomadic signs. So he wasn't really scent marking. He was just walking around and covering quite big distance, which is often what you see from leopards that are starting to age and start to become less territorial and more nomadic. And this is kind of slow easing into that. But last week was really interesting, because we followed him along, and he scent marked multiple times through what was used to be Hukumuri's territory. So he was quite far to the west, but he was definitely back leg scraping. He was spraying on bushes. He was rubbing his face. So he was very, very, very much, but basically being a dominant male leopard in that he was marking territory, which interests me, because the particular place where we saw him, which is, like I say, on the western side of Djuma, we haven't seen him in that area for many, many months. He's not been going that way, and like I say, it's because of Hukumuri and obviously Mulawati as well, that he's been spending so much more time kind of to the northeast. And so him coming back down is almost like he's refound himself. And I wonder if it's not because Hukumuri's been getting so much pressure from the likes of Tortoise Pan, Hosana, even Mulawati himself, that's left this western side a lot more vacant. And because of that, Mulawati also is spending a lot more time to the south and to the west. He's being seen all over the place lately. And maybe that's just opened things up for Tingana to feel like he's caught a break and to kind of resurge back into dominance for one last time. Either way, it's interesting. It really kind of complicates things heavily in terms of cubs and things like that, because now Shadulu's going to have to try and figure out a way to have cubs in this mess between Mulawati, Hukumuri, Tingana, and potentially even Tortoise Pan, because they're all seemingly pushing into a similar area. So that's going to make life for her a little bit tricky. But what was interesting is that she was seen all the way at Chitwa the other day, which is the furthest east that Shadulu's ever gone. And I wonder if it wasn't because she was following Mulawati that way to mate with him. Anyway, we'll sit with Tingana for the rest of the morning. Why not? It's always such a pleasure to be in the company of this legend.
Welcome back, everyone, to andBeyond Phinda. And our elephant is still very persistent at draining that watering hole there, and still not letting any of the other animals come to drink. Had some warthogs, feisty warthogs, getting into some wrestling matches here. Also getting into the water where the elephant is, so not too phased by the elephant, and then he flicks his trunk and then they all run in different directions. Oh, let's see, there's warthogs chasing one another. see this warthog coming back to the mud wallow. So interestingly, this mud wallow that this warthog has just come towards, some of the warthogs have been drinking from this water, but it's not ideal for drinking. A lot of animals have been wallowing in it, and unfortunately they also urinate and defecate in this mud. So it's more of a mud wallow than a watering hole. But you'll see every now and then there are some swallows that are swooping down to the water, and they are actually drinking on the wing. So they swoop down and take a little mouthful of water as they fly past. Oh, no. KCG, he has been drinking forever. Unfortunately, what I'm thinking is this that the watering hole is drying up, so there's not too much water left in there, and he's actually trying to extract water straight from the pump where it's being pumped into that little watering hole. So I think he's getting small amounts at a time. He's actually not getting a trunk full of water every time. So it may seem like he's drinking a lot. I think he's just spending a lot of time trying to drink. But yeah, it does feel like he's been drinking forever. I don't know, Glenn, if you maybe want to go across to these rhinos. So we've got the two rhinos that we're lying with close to the lions. I shouldn't say with the lions, but they were lying close to the lions earlier. And they've also slowly just been grazing, heading in the direction of the watering hole as well. But they know as well that the elephant is there, so they're not going to compete with the elephant. He's much bigger than them. So they're just biding their time, feeding. And you'll see this one on the left, the back one, has got some beautiful red colouring on his skin, and that's because he was lying on that termite mound right next to those lions. And he's making a big wee. So these are two young bulls. So not yet territorial, and just moving together for companionship. So they are more social. The white rhinos are more social than the black rhinos, and so these two are just sticking together so that they have another rhino with them as they move and feed and rest. They just feel comfortable when they know there's another rhino with them. Oh, that's a big wee. See. And quickly catching up with his buddy. Nature lover, yeah, it's amazing. So these bulls, I would say in the region of 2.5 tons now, or 2 to 2.5 tons, and obviously it increases as they increase with size and age, but it's always been the most fascinating and amazing thing for me to know that they suckle and drink milk for the first few months of their lives, but eventually they just move on to grass, and all they eat is grass to get to the size that they are. And in terms of kilograms, 100 kilograms of grass a day, which is hard to imagine, but yeah, in 24 hours I know that rhinos, a big adult fully grown rhino, has to eat between 100, 120, sometimes the really big bulls up to 150 kilograms of just grass. And so they spend most of their time like this with their heads down, grazing. The problem is they also don't extract a lot of nutrients from the grass, so they've got one stomach, and so they don't digest the grass very well, and their dung, when it comes out and it dries up, if you have a look at the dung, you'll see that there's some almost intact grass that's gone straight through the rhino, so they don't get a lot of nutrients out of the grass, and that's why they have to eat so much throughout the day. They're almost competing there for the best grass. Alright, so Glenn and I are going to be moving on from this area. I just want to quickly go past a spot where that female cheetah, for those of you that have been watching the last few days, female cheetah with the 3 new cubs that have only been seen once or twice now. I just want to go past the area where she was seen last night and see if maybe we have any luck this morning.
So another herd of elephants has arrived. So this is probably herd number 4 of the day. This one's a bit of a smaller herd, probably only about 15 of them in this herd. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, 13 or 14 elephants. It's a bit of a smaller herd, but just adding to the total, I must say we probably have over 70 or 80 elephants that have come to the dam this morning, maybe even more, because there's about 10 young bulls that have also just arrived to our right, as you can see, not wet mud. And then these youngsters have just had a bit of a play in the mud, and now they're all moving off. Goodness gracious me, comes an elephant bull. Hey old chap. Hey, old chap. He came in here charging like I don't know, like what, but he was acting very strange. We're sitting here for a long time now, young man. Don't act like we've blocked your path. You can go anywhere you like. So interesting behavior that we witness at this waterhole all the time. Yes, yes. See, a lot of liquid coming out of your nose. Yeah, have you got a bit of a cold? Is that why you're grumpy? Hey? Is that why you got a bit of a grump on? How interesting. And he also made... Did you hear that sound, BK? It was like a weird sound. It wasn't like a normal trumpet. It was like his nose is blocked. That was pretty odd. So sometimes elephants do that, you know. He was obviously walking up here and we were sitting in what was his way, I suppose, but as you can see there's plenty of space around us. He didn't need to get all grumpy like that. I think he's got a bit of a cold. His nose definitely seems blocked. He's got a lot of mucus dripping out of it, so he's probably just a bit grumpy because of that. Yeah, well, most of the elephants seem to be calming down now. It's mostly they're all heading off. Got to go and feed. I know they were discussing about rhinos and how much they eat now. Elephants eat a lot more than rhinos because they are much bigger, but anywhere between 150 to 300 kilograms of green food per day elephants will eat, depending on their size. Obviously, a large female, maybe 150, a large male, a very big male, up to 300, and the youngsters much less. But at this time of year now, it's easy for them to get that much, because everything is green and everything is nutritious, especially the grasses. And so we're finding that the elephants can spend a lot more time in the waterhole and cooling off and enjoying themselves. Such a tough life for an animal during the winter. An animal this big as an elephant, to find enough nutrition is so tricky. So now it's really the time of plenty where they can enjoy their life to the fullest. The wind is picking up a little bit, which is bringing a bit of welcome relief from the rising temperatures. And of course the gooses just slowly idling their way past the elephants. Now that most of the elephants have left, they can take to the water again without worrying too much. Always wondered why geese, these particular geese here, the Egyptian goose, are always hanging around the elephants when they're in the water. And I sort of have a theory that as the elephants disturb the mud, they also disturb things like frogs that are in the water, and maybe other things, aquatic insects. And that's what these geese will snap up.
As you can see, Tingana has woken up from his slumber and is just doing a spot of grooming. I don't think he's going to move anywhere. I think he just decided to make himself even more beautiful than he already is. And so he's just grooming paws, grooming face, and that would also indicate that maybe he came off a meal. Often what you find is when they've eaten a little bit, then they take meticulous care in cleaning particularly the claw area, around that sort of muzzle, which is what he's been doing. He's been grooming pretty much since we last time you saw us. So he's been pretty kind of adamant at getting those paws particularly quite clean. It also could be due to the fact that we're going into summer months now, and the tick load is going to become much higher. So if you actually look, he does have a few ticks on his neck and around his ears. And so you'll find in summer that they really pay a lot of attention trying to get rid of a lot of those ticks. They ultimately don't want to let that tick load get too high. And so they're very good at getting rid of those and making sure that the ticks are completely kind of removed. I remember we once had Kalamba, just after she left Tundi, and she ended up with, I think it was like over 17 ticks just kind of between her ears on the back of her head. So they can get quite bad. And obviously with an older leopard like Tingana, even though physically he's in really good condition, too many ticks can lead to a few little problems. But he is absolutely magnificent. I can't believe how good he's looking. He's just seems to just be a leopard that can go and go and go. I know a lot of you will know his history, but for those of you that don't, the first time we saw him was in 2011. Now, back then, which is, 9 years ago, so he's been a dominant individual for 9 years, which is extremely long for a male leopard. And when he first arrived, we weren't sure on his age. We couldn't find where he came from. And so we don't know his exact date of birth, but we estimated him to be about 4 or 5 years old. Now, if that's the case, that makes this leopard 13, 14. Most male leopards that we see in this particular area will generally start to lose condition at around 12 years old, and very few of them survive sort of past 13, 14. So for him to be in the condition that he's in is absolutely phenomenal. Now, it could be that we got our aging a little bit wrong. But generally, when you start to see young male leopards arriving, it's anywhere between sort of 2 years old and 4 or 5 is when they start to make an appearance in a new area. But with him, when he first arrived, he already had quite a sizable dewlap, quite a big body. And so maybe he just grew very young and was slightly younger than we first anticipated. And maybe he was only about 3 years old. I don't know. But like I say, it was a complete guess. But he is anywhere between sort of 12 and 14. I don't think he can be much younger than that. But even for that age group, he is looking magnificent. And you think about where he came from at one point in 2017, end of 2017, 2018, he was in a really, really bad condition. Something happened where he just lost all of his muscle mass. He didn't move around a lot. He looked really bad for a while. And he somehow came back from that and is now kind of pushing back all these males that encroached during that period, which is absolutely astounding. And like I say, he's a sizable cat, so he's a lot larger than people give him credit for. A lot of the sort of legendary big male leopards have, kind of been spoken about at length, but he is most certainly in that category. He is in no way a small leopard. He's a bit of a tank and must be quite intimidating, particularly when he's in really good condition like he is now, when he's got a bit of a fuller belly, he's got this big dewlap, and really big kind of shoulders and head. So I'd imagine that he's still able to command some respect, and it's whether or not, mentally he really wants to chase other males out. I think that's what it comes down to these days. So, Susanna, it's a bit tricky. I'll show you a map now, which is it's tough to show you because it's kind of off the edge of where we are. Also, the wind is absolutely howling, so this is going to be interesting. So I'm going to just do it like this so that the wind doesn't blow it too much. But essentially, this is Djuma over here. So this kind of block that you see at the bottom. Where we are right now is over here, just on the right, on the edge of the map, in a little pan called One-Eyed Pan, which is inside Simambili. Now, typically, this particular section or this area is where we used to see Hukumuri mostly, and he used to come in and kind of move his way around. So this was Hukumuri's territory until recently. Mulawati has been hanging around more to the south, so if you had to draw an invisible line kind of through this is where Mulawati has been seen. But the guys say that they've seen him on Simambili, but given the fact that they were calling this Mulawati, how accurate that is, I'm not really sure. Without seeing, pictures, are always kind of a bit worried about it. But we also have seen another male leopard over in this area called Motswiri, and he hangs around mostly in this northern kind of Buffels Hook area. And last week we found another young male just over here on what's called Old Airstrip, but that young male was tiny. He must have been only about 14, 15 months old. No sign of the mom, so it seems like he's left his mom quite early. But there's a lot of male leopards kind of hanging around in this area. And so Tingana, why he's here and what he's doing here, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe he just went for a little walk into the west to go and check, or maybe he's starting to put pressure on these other leopards to move back and that he can then reclaim a lot of this area. I don't know, but it's getting quite densely packed in this particular section with male leopards. If you think we've got Mulawati, Hukumuri, this new young male, we've got Nhlangula, we've got Tingana. There's a lot going on in just this little section, and so something will have to give at some point. But hopefully we'll be here to kind of watch it as it plays out, and hopefully the Duke will be the one to assert himself further and be for many years to come the dominant male.
Come on, come on, come on. Yes, look at that, folks. Ludwig's bastard. Do you have audio? My second sighting on Tswalu, and something we do not see very often here. Ludwig's bastard. A bit smaller than a Kori bastard. And then you can see that nice light brown section on its back, or on its neck actually. And then that darker cap, very distinctive and very nice bird to see on Tswalu. What a sighting. Wow. Very special, I'm sure, for a lot of the birders that would be a first time there. First time sighting for a lot of the birders. And that colour being very, very distinctive. I was lucky enough to even snap a photo or two. It's always really good for reference work. Getting a photo or two, very important for my documentation as well. I keep a list of everything, literally everything that I see in my career. So, looking at bastards, I'm just going to quickly get to the page here. I'm going to show you folks quickly what we were looking at. This is the difference between that of the Kori and the Ludwigs. Let me go to page 90. There we go. And we were looking at this beautiful bird, right over here, Ludwig's bastard. You can see in comparison to the Kori bastard that there's quite a big size difference between the two individuals, and then as well as that nice light brown patch I spoke of there by its neck, and then the dark brown crown that is presented on the head. No feathers coming off like your Kori bustard, very distinctive little headdress, not present on that of the Ludwigs. But very nice sighting, and take a look at the distribution. If you take a look just across over here, you see the distribution is a little bit far off of us, not too far, but its core unit is further down south in comparison to where we are. Just want to find a little pointer here, but a very special sighting, like I said, only the second time I've seen it on Tswalu, so really super nice treat to see this large bird. And what caught our attention first was this bird in flight and its very light chest. And I instinctively looked across, and then we saw its partner meandering through this beautiful elandsbeen. But what a treat. Ha! So we have had no luck on any cheetah track. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to keep on meandering. We're using a cut line that's very far west from where we started. Cut line, when I refer to cut lines, I'm just referring to them as roads. We use the term cut line here. And I'm just going to continue on this road. We've gone far west, and hopefully we can get something. We're going to send you off, and we'll see you shortly.
Here we have a beautiful marula. Such a gorgeous tree. I just wanted to take it in for a little while, listen to the sounds. The wind, it's got this really beautiful cool breeze. It just makes me feel happy, and I hope it'll make you feel happy too. I love the leaves swaying in the wind. Such a gentle wind. Couple deep breaths. It's been a lovely, relaxed morning. Oh, just wonderful.
It has been a relaxing morning. It's been a funny morning, kind of quite quiet at times, but it's really nice to kind of finish with the Duke. It's certainly windy and hot, which is always an indication that change of weather is coming, so I wouldn't be surprised we get some rain tomorrow or tonight with this wind that's blowing the way it is. But been a beautiful morning nonetheless, lots of small things, which is always good. As you can see, Tingana is now down and sleeping. I think that's it for him for the day. I think he's found himself a nice little shady spot, and he'll just continually move with the shade as it goes. I doubt that he's going to find anywhere where he's going to kind of move to that's far away from here. There's water close by, there's shade close by, and so for him this is just a great place to lie down with that kind of fullish belly, and we'll find that he'll probably start waking up later this afternoon. Although we know that Tingana also is not afraid to walk during the day. Last week when we had him, he was covering serious ground all the way through the afternoon, even though it was fairly warm. So maybe he'll move a little bit, but I doubt it. I expect him to be pretty stationary here this afternoon, which is wonderful, because maybe that means that we can come and spend some time with him this afternoon. There was also a report of Inzutini on Simambili as well, so maybe she's going to still be around this afternoon, that we can go and catch up with her. A lot of you won't know who that leopard is. It's a daughter of Tiani, who's the daughter of Salahesh, which is the kind of western lineage within this area. We have had her, I think, I've definitely had her once on camera, but I think she's been on before again after that. So she's not a cat we see all that much of, but she's absolutely beautiful and very relaxed. So maybe this afternoon we'll try and see if we can go and find her before we kind of come down to where Tingana is and see what's happening there. But lots of promise. There's also apparently a kill inside Buffelshoek, which is probably the one that's intriguing me the most, because I would like to go and see who it is, but they say there's a kill there but no sign of the leopard. And the reason why I want to head up that way is because where it is an area where Luna spends a lot of time. And the last footage I had of Luna, which was probably about 2 months ago, she was heavily pregnant, incredibly rotund. And so if it is her up there, it would be a great opportunity to see if she returns under the cover of darkness late in the afternoon to the carcass, if she's got suckle marks and therefore, you know, the potential to try and start really putting in some effort to find a den and maybe relax her cubs, even if she's not that relaxed herself. So there's lots to kind of think about for the afternoon safari, which is always a good thing. It's nice when we've got options, that's for sure. I expect, though, that it will have to be after dark, that particular sighting, because I don't think she's going to come during the day. Even though there are hyenas present, she's not up the tree. Obviously a little bit wary. And if it's not her, then it's a very shy male leopard, which would be interesting too, because that would be right in the heart of Ntlangula's territory. So lots to look forward to later. As you can see with Tingy, his ears are still very much working, even though he's in this kind of sleepy position. It always makes me laugh with these leopards. They look as though they're completely out cold, but you'll find, especially with this wind blowing, there's lots of rustling going on. And so I expect that he's going to constantly be moving those ears just to listen. The one good thing, though, is with wind like this, is it often means very few flies. The flies struggle to fly in this, and so you don't get as many, which I'm sure will be very enjoyable for these cats today. The biting flies here can be thoroughly annoying, often going into the ears and eyes and up the nose and around the muzzle, and you can imagine the whole day just constantly having to shake your head and twitch your ears, and especially for them with how sensitive their ears are. It must be incredibly uncomfortable. And we know for ourselves, when a fly lands on your face, around your nose or your ear or your mouth, it's not pleasant at all. And so for them, I would imagine it's very much the same story. So he'll be a happy cat today. He's got everything that he needs in order to have a fairly comfortable day. Even though it is going to be warm, there's at least this nice breeze that's blowing, which I'll imagine will be quite hot by this afternoon, but still a bit of shade, bit of water, and a breeze is as good as it's going to get in these hot summer months. Anyway, it is that time of the day where we need to say goodbye to all of you. Hopefully you've had a wonderful morning. Seems like there's been a bit of something for everybody across all the various locations in Africa. We hope that you have enjoyed your morning. We certainly have. And like I say, lots and lots and lots of epic things to look forward to this afternoon. And so we hopefully will see you all for our afternoon safari. From all of us, goodbye. I'll see you later.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jumbo, a very good afternoon. And we're right here in the Masai Mara. The Mara Triangle looks like we have a little bit of a drizzle. And